This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to sunrise, or sunset, actually, not sunrise, Morgan. It's a great start. Sunset safari. As you can see, there's not much of the sun blazing down today. It's all very, very cloudy and overcast, which is what it is. Anyway, my name is Tristan. Camera, I've got Morgan. This is a very warm welcome to all of you. Hopefully you are prepped and ready for a good afternoon safari, and hopefully there'll be lots of cool things to see. Remember that we are coming to you live from various parts of South Africa, and so we would love to hear from you. You can ask questions at hashtag WildEarth on Twitter, at FC on the YouTube chat, in the various comment sections of the other places that we stream to, as well as kiddies. You can send your questions through to kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. Did I cover everything, Morgan?
I think you did.
Oh, wonderful. Not such a bad start then. All right, rather than letting you guys look at this enthralling opening that we've decided to show you this afternoon, I think we should carry on bumbling. What we're going to do is head south and east. It's time for me to go and look for Marips today. I've ignored him for 2 days, and soon he shall get sulky, and then I'll be in trouble with him, and, well, none of us want that. So I'm going to head eastwards, try to follow up on him. Hopefully, fingers crossed, that he'll be in a place where we get signal. Rusty's not great on Torchwood, so it's a bit of a gamble, but we'll see how we go. I think Tess is going to go north, and she's going to try and see if she can get signal with the lions, so that's also going to be a little bit of a cross fingers. They've moved a little bit, and maybe, just maybe, she might be able to pick up something there. And other than that, we'll just take what comes our way. It seems like decent conditions for things to be active all sort of afternoon. So I'm hoping, unlike yesterday where it was blazing hot and quiet, that this afternoon will be a lot better, and we'll luckily, or be lucky and pick up something at some point. Morgan, I'm struggling to speak this afternoon. I don't know what's wrong with me. I feel like I'm dyslexic in speech. The heat stroke, yes. You definitely were soldiered down for 5 minutes, and luckily your day was brightened by a baby blue beetle that came rearing through our buffalo sighting. I mean, if we spot another one, then we know Jonty got very lost during the course of his day. But I know that he didn't actually, Morgan, because he's already trying to organize a touch rugby game in Hoedspruit. So I saw a message on one of the groups that I'm on that he's trying to get guys together, and I love it because in Hoedspruit the guys will post touch rugby game and they'll get a phenomenal response. 20 guys will be like, we'll be there. 5 minutes before, you just see everyone pulling out. It's amazing. I love it. So yeah, we'll see if Jonty gets his wishes. It seems like if all the guys that are going to be playing, there's going to be no veterinary work done, no wild dog research being done, and no community cattle programs being monitored, because all of the above mentioned have said yes to said rugby game. So Jonty is disturbing the whole apple cart of the conservation circles of Hoedspruit. Exactly. A blue beetle with knees out each side, you're right. All right, let's be actually quite serious here and actually focus on what we're trying to do. I'm going to try and see, I'm going to go past Treehouse Dam first, just to check if there isn't any sign of those leopard tracks from today. Maybe we can pick up something above, on top of the buffalo. So that's where we're going to head first, and then we'll head east. In the meantime, though, let's send you across to the weather so you can see how we're going to fare this afternoon.
Good afternoon and welcome back to a cloudy Djuma Private Game Reserve. I'm actually driving on my way to see if I can find you some lions. My name is Tessa. I'm going to be your guide on safari this afternoon. Behind the camera we have Paul, and we are very, very excited and hoping that we will manage to find these lions. So I'm in Buffels Hook at the moment, which is just north of Djuma. I'm heading almost straight north at the moment, a bit northwest. And what I'm really, really hoping is that these lions are still lying around. From what I know, they've been on a carcass, which is incredibly exciting. Oh, there we go. They are directly in front of me. They are still feeding on the carcass just underneath the shade of a guarri tree there. And you'll see Paul's going to zoom in for you. I'm going to get closer for you now, but you can actually see that dark shape is the rib cage of a buffalo. And you can see the lions there as well. So this is part of the Talamati Pride. And they have been munching on this buffalo all day, and it's the perfect day for it with our overcast weather. It's nice and cool. You can actually see that one lioness is still chewing on the rib cage. The others look like they might be sleeping. Incredible. I can see a paw in the air. That's always a good sign that there's lions around, when you see paws in the air. So this is the first time that I'm seeing lions in over 7 months. And I'm so excited. Oh my goodness. All right, let me see if I can get a little closer for you. Oh, I can see another one getting up as well. So this is in fact also my first time meeting the Talamati Pride, or part of them anyway. And it just blows my mind that I get to do this. There are just lions everywhere. Sleeping, standing, feeding. Oh, yes, and there's some sub-adult males. Hello, big boy. Oh, that is brilliant. I'm actually going to park you right here because we've got a lion on either side. This is amazing. How incredibly lucky am I to be sitting here? Oh, look at this beautiful sub-adult. Look at that belly on him. There's not very much left of the buffalo. You can see there's still some organs inside the rib cage. But that lioness is actually trying to get to the meat around the neck and the collarbones. If you listen carefully, you can actually hear her feeding. So she's actually planted it down. She's got her foot holding part of the carcass down to make it easier for her to rip that meat off. So that crunching that you could hear, you can actually still hear her chewing. She's found a chewy piece, possibly got some bone in it. And as she was shearing that meat off, she probably got a little bit of bone with it. It's amazing. You forget how big these cats are when you haven't seen them for a while. Oh, just listen to that crunching. So the wind is quite strong, unfortunately, which is distorting the sound a bit. But you can imagine it's actually really good for the lions to have that wind because it's helping them cool down. When they eat a lot of red meat like this, and you can see there's hardly anything left, these lions have eaten everything that they can as fast as they can. And so now with a big belly full of red meat, it means their body's heating up to try and digest it. It's really hard work for the body to digest red meat. And so that's why there's only one lioness feeding at the moment. The others are all trying to cool off. So she's definitely enjoying the meal and getting as much as she can. It's incredibly special. Lions have, well, actually most predators have incredibly sharp molars where we would have really flat ones. And that's why, as you can see her there, she's actually shearing the meat with the side of her mouth, not the front. She can lick it off the bone if she wants to, but it's easier to use her molars, which are basically like scissors when you put the top and bottom jaw together, and just slice straight through the meat, and that'll get it nice and close to the bone. Anything that's left she can then lick off later. You can hear that noise. It's one of the sub-adult lions that's half sneezing. He's lying right here next to him, Paul, and he seems to have something stuck in his nostril. Maybe a grass seed or a fly. You can see he's repositioned himself so that he's got as much power behind that as possible. He's actually quite beautiful. His mane is starting to grow really nicely on the bottom, not so much on the top. The top looks a bit more like a mohawk at this stage. He's really struggling with something in his throat or his nostril. It's unreal. Actually, it's my first time not only meeting the Talamati pride, but also the dark mane male. And he is very, very nicely grouped with the rest of the pride. He's actually got his paw currently stuck in a guari tree up in the air so that he can get some air underneath his leg. And you'll see him just off to the right of the carcass. He's lying next to a lioness there. So he is a very big male. So to me, this is quite a magical moment. I have not been able to see this in so long, so I'm going to soak in as much of this as I can as another lioness walks over there. And we're going to see what happens throughout the afternoon.
Well, we are still, well, not still, I feel like still, because I've been at Treehouse Dam for, I think, every drive since I've been back. But I'm not really sure why. We haven't had a lot of success here, but, you know, we had buffalo this morning, which was nice, and leopard tracks, so that's kind of why I've ended up back here again. But as you can see, there is so much to talk about here and so much happening that I don't even know where to start. It's thriving with activity this afternoon. Lots of ripples on the water, isn't there, Morgan? That's about the sum total of what's going on at Treehouse Dam this afternoon. A little bit of wind and the odd bird that's not even staying around, just flittering past. So we haven't really seen too much. No tracks that I can kind of pick up of this leopard so far. So what we'll do is I think we'll just carry on from here, check Twin Dams, and then eastwards, go and look for mareeps. But that'll be a kind of rough plan at this stage. I was kind of hoping we were going to come here and this leopard was just going to be sitting here. I mean, I know it was a long shot, Morgan, but, you know, one can live in a dream world, can't they? I think so too. But alas, our dream has been popped. The bubble's gone, Morgan. And we are now rendered with very little. One nice thing is the gardenia. You see the flowers on the gardenia. The buffalo left us some, which is quite nice. Thank you, buffalo. Very kind of you to leave us some beauty. Oh, well done, Tessa. You relocated on the Talamati Pride. She relocated on the Talamati Pride, Morgan.
Nice thing to bump into.
Nice thing to bump into, exactly. Anyway. All right, Treehouse Dam. It's been real. We'll probably see you again tomorrow.
Or later this drive.
Or later this drive, exactly, Morgan. I think that's probably what's going to happen. So we're going to carry on and try and figure out what else we can see and what else is out there. Hopefully, at some point, we'll get some luck and find something on the road.
Good afternoon and welcome to an overcast andBeyond in Ngala, everybody. And as you can see, first thing up this afternoon, we have managed to find ourselves quite a nice herd of Kudu. And have a look closely how they are feeding off this beautiful green, or these beautiful green leaves on this spiny or spike thorn curry. My name is Nick, and behind camera we have Gert again this afternoon. And as mentioned, it is nice and overcast. It's not too hot, which is fantastic compared to yesterday where we were baking in the sun. And yeah, this allows the animals to move a little bit earlier today, which will hopefully be the case. And starting with these kudu, you can see exactly why they've come to this specific bush this afternoon, one of the first bushes in this part of the reserve to get their nice new spring foliage. Have a look at those ears and just how big they are. And watch her chew, as well as it almost looks like she's got a little moustache, the white just above and below her lips. And you can see how she focuses those big ears and points them in the direction that she walks before she heads off in that direction, just to pick up on any noises. It's not often that you'll get 4 kudu cows all feeding on one bush. Nice time of year for the browsers. If you have a look at the grass, you'll see it's still very dry and brown, whereas the spring leaves are starting to come through. Our plan this afternoon was to come and check our eastern boundary from close to Orpin Camp down to a waterhole that we call Deep Quarry. Although we missed the dogs yesterday as a result of load shedding and no signal, this morning the dogs, or the African wild dogs, were reported to have been on our boundary, but none of the guides or trackers from Ngala saw them. So this afternoon we thought we'd just venture down this road. It is a little bit bumpy, and there is a main road just behind us, but you never know. With the wind blowing from a southerly direction, there was a good chance that those animals headed off in a southerly direction as well, with the help of the wind making their hunting a little bit easier. And who knows, when we get to the first waterhole later this afternoon, maybe they'll be around there, if we're super lucky. So while we leave these kudu cows and head off to Deep Quarry to check for any signs of the African wild dogs, we're going to send you over to Mike at Pridelands, who wants to say good afternoon.
It's not just us who wants to say hello, but a beautiful group of elephant bulls have just been down at the water's edge here at Tswalu Dam having a little drink this afternoon. It seems like they've been spooked. There's a lot of people in the camp at the moment. Activities have not started. Our students are still there. Hi everyone, my name's Mike Anderson. Behind the camera is BK, and this is Eco Training's Pridelands Conservancy, where, as you've all come to know and love, the elephants never fail to disappoint us. It's not so hot today. It's very windy though. The elephants just came to have a drink, and now they're passing along the drainage line which goes along the edge of our camp. And as I've mentioned, our students are about to leave on activities, and so they're obviously very excited about the elephants being here, and they're watching them from within the safety of the camp. And I think those elephants know it, and that's why they've just moved a little bit away from the camp, and now they've stopped underneath that beautiful leadwood tree just to have a little think. Hi, Kayla. Hi, Kayla. How are you doing? I hope you're having a wonderful afternoon. Kayla, elephants do get cold. Certainly they do, sometimes. So these elephants are not flapping their ears. Can you see that, Kayla? So when they don't flap their ears, it's a sign that they don't need to cool down. They are already cool enough. When it rains and it's very cold for long periods, you'll find elephants tend to huddle together, standing very close to each other in order to get some body warmth. And on the other side of the coin, Kayla, if it's very, very hot, you'll see elephants going into water. You'll see them flicking their ears back and forth. You'll see them throwing mud and water on themselves to try and cool down. So they certainly do feel the differences in temperature, but it takes a lot longer. Small animals will get hot and cold very quickly, whereas elephants, it takes a long time for them to build up that heat or to get very cold. They don't like wind, though. They certainly don't like wind. They'll shelter from wind if it's very windy. If you had big ears and a big nose, and you were having dust and wind constantly blowing around, very uncomfortable. These are all bull elephants. These are all males. Some are younger, some are a bit older, but they're a bachelor group who are just learning about life and living the best life that they have. Finding water, finding food, which is difficult now. Water is very scarce and food is even more scarce. See those elephants on the left there, BK, just in the middle, sorry. They're busy digging around at the base of that small green bush, looking for any fallen leaves that could be tasty, looking for, just those ones there, just past the leadwood. You see that group in the middle? They're busy trying to find any fallen leaves, roots, twigs, bark. They need to eat a lot to keep their bodies healthy at this time. Well, while these elephants are looking for something tasty to eat, sounds like Tessa's got some big cats that are already munching down.
Back, everybody. So I've had a really good chance to have a look at who these Pride members are. And it's amazing to see, but another lioness has joined this one, and she's actually the purple-eyed lioness. She sustained some injuries last night. Hopefully we can get a shot of that for you just now. But at the moment, they are just capitalizing on all of this meat. You can see that lioness is panting heavily. So there's still a lot of meat around the neck area, so you can understand why she's pulling on it so strongly. She's struggling to keep a grip on that piece. That's very close to the skin, so it would be quite difficult to grip. And as she's trying to pull, the other lioness is pulling from the other side, so that's why the carcass is moving. Incredible. Logan, a lion pride would stay with a carcass as long as there's enough meat for all of them. So at this point there's not a lot left. There are 9 lions here, excluding the dark-maned male. So 10 mouths is a lot to feed. It looks like that purple-eyed lioness is actually still quite thin, so she hasn't fed a lot. She spent the night just trying to get here. So that's why she's feeding. But with how much is left here, considering they've only been feeding for a day or so, I don't think they'll be here for much longer. For something the size of a buffalo with a pride of maybe 10 lions, I'd say maximum 2 or 3 days, and then there'll be nothing left. Something smaller would be a lot quicker. Something like a wildebeest or a kudu would maybe last them a day. Maybe a little bit longer if they're feeling a bit conservative. You can see they really have taken pretty much all of the meat off of this buffalo, except for that neck area. The neck and the head would possibly be the hardest to feed on. Quite intricate in that area. The horns would also get in the way. But certainly not stopping these lionesses. But you can see the difference in condition on the lioness from the left to the right. The one on the left, you can see she's very well toned, she's muscular. She's in very, very good condition. Even her coat is still smooth, it's hardly any scarring. And you can see there on her stomach in particular, there's a beautiful line of muscle and then a full belly underneath. Very powerful shoulders and neck. And if you compare that, you know, just kind of going across to an older lioness who's not in such good condition. She's got the purple eye from glaucoma, so I'm hoping you get to see it later. You can see she's a lot thinner, especially there at her hips, and you can see the injuries on her back legs. Her skin is hanging in some places. When she stood up, she was incredibly thin. You can actually see parts of her spine sticking out as well, the bone structure of her spine. So she's definitely not in very good condition at this point. So she would really be trying to capitalize on as much meat as she can at this point, especially with the vast majority of this pride sleeping at this point. It means she's got the least competition for food. That lioness is beautiful. I can see the magic of the Talamati pride in person, and it's just unreal. It's a very highly spoken of pride, so very happy that I actually get to meet them today. So I'm going to sit here and keep watching this. Maybe some of the other lions might start moving around a bit later on as the breeze is picking up. And hopefully I get to see a lot more lion action today.
I have a degree in environmental planning and development. My passion is outdoor classrooms. We are not only grooming the environmentalists of tomorrow, but tomorrow's leaders as well. My long-term goal is for the people of South Africa to learn how to live sustainably, to be able to look after themselves and the environment. So I hope that through environmental education, we are able to get that message to the future generation of South Africa so that they start now and can continue that good practice in the future. Environmental education is critical so that people can live sustainably in the future. That is my long-term goal.
Civilized to just found some black rhino tracks. A mother with a calf. The calf tracks are so small. They're somewhere here in this area, but it's too dense to walk this way. So we're gonna walk around where it's not so dense. Let's hope we get lucky.
And sometimes you often drag their feet forward and deposit the scent mark, which is that what they use to patrol their territory.
We managed to get a glimpse of the black rhino, but for safety reasons, of course, we held back and we walked a different way, but it was such a fantastic experience. We didn't just focus on the big things, because it's not all about the big things. We focused on army ants and lots of dung. Civilized did an incredible job, but it's up to the judges now.
Something very, very interesting. I didn't plan this, but this is a scene rarely seen. This is what we call a journey of giraffe. So beautiful.
Tune into WildEarth every single day. It's in your nature.
Well, still no luck outside. We've just been going very slowly along the southern boundary. No sign of that leopard coming out anywhere since we drove around there this morning. So no sign. I had a report, somebody said that there was, they sounded very confused. Been a lot of very confusing reports late. Trusting the guys in their updates lately has been a risky business. But there was a report that lions came out of Kalahari into Torchwood, which is not possible. But maybe they're mixing up, I don't actually know what it is. I'm along the entire boundary of Little Gari to just see if I can find where it's gone. Unless they think like this is Torchwood where I am now, I'm not sure. So I just want to double check. There's a road that comes out here, so if maybe they use that road, we should pick it up. Otherwise, cheat a cut line. I don't think anyone drove here this morning from our side. I think the guys in the east would have driven this area, but from our side, I don't think anyone would have driven here. So we're just going to look carefully. Nothing there, because they're saying to me that it was the Nkuhumas that could have crossed our side because they had tracks for female lions coming through. I almost said female lionesses, which is completely wrong. It's either a lioness or a female lion. All right. I'm going to carry on checking the supposed boundary that I'm supposed to be checking, see if we get any luck. In the meantime, though, Nick sounds like he's made his way to a waterhole and he has some animals drinking.
So we're stuck with this elephant bull, and as you can see, he's made his way down towards the water. And look how he's using his trunk just like a straw to suck up water and then place it into his mouth. Love watching elephants and the way they manipulate their trunk when they drink. And you can imagine for an animal that's eating a whole bunch of grass and leaves and bark and woody material during the day, almost crucial to come down and have a drink of water at least once a day, just to help aid digestion. Unfortunately for us, doesn't mean that the wild dogs are not anywhere around, but they are definitely not around this waterhole, so just enjoy the elephant bull for now. It's got quite nice thick tusks as well. Not incredibly long, but nice and thick. You can see how he's angling his trunk towards us now, and that's because the wind's just turned and it's blowing in his direction. So he'll be getting a whole bunch of new smells coming from our vehicle. Good question, Wesley. And I don't think there are. I think it's predominantly muscle within the trunk. So you can imagine if there were bones, it would be tricky for him to manipulate it the way he does. So it's got an exceptionally large amount of muscles in the trunk. And I think from what I've read, people estimate between 50,000 and 100,000 muscles in an elephant's trunk, which is quite crazy to comprehend. And that's a lot of different individual muscles that you've got to train to be able to work it correctly. But you can see this elephant bull, being as old and mature as he is, he's really mastered the use of it. I mean, since we've arrived, a good couple minutes, he's just been standing there sucking water up into his trunk and placing it in his mouth. He's probably really drunk. I mean, it's an estimate, but maybe between 20 and 50 litres, somewhere around there in the brief time that we've been here. Probably closer to 20 litres, to be honest. You can also see how his tail is consistently moving left to right. So I think there must be some flies or biting insects that are bothering him a little bit. Without a doubt, Andy. So it all depends on the temperature though. I mean, even if it was a day if today was as hot as it was yesterday, there would have been a very good chance that we would have seen this elephant bull go right into the middle of this waterhole and swim and splash itself and roll over onto its side. And I think as the rains come and summer becomes closer and closer, it's going to get hotter and hotter. So in that case, we tend to see elephants almost on a daily basis mud wallowing. And it's really, the bulls are always fun to watch because they become quite playful in the dams and in the mud wallows. But for me, the herd, a full breeding herd of elephants mud wallowing is my best. Because the little ones just lie flat on their side and roll around in the mud, and then on occasion the little ones struggle to get up, and then the whole herd will panic, and some of the bigger cows and its mother will come right up to the baby and just try and give it that helping hand to get back onto its feet. But on a day like today, I mean, I wouldn't say never, but I don't think it's quite hot enough for this elephant to go right into the water. I don't think it's necessary. So you can see now how he stopped completely as well, just taking a bit of a break in drinking. But look how that left ear is pushed right out, and he's changed the whole direction of his head. So he's angled it more to the right, which is now the direction that the wind is blowing in. So I wonder if he didn't hear something that we didn't, maybe other elephants communicating between themselves, or a trumpet from a herd. So while we sit and enjoy this elephant bull, we're going to send you back to Tess, who is still with the lions.
Welcome back. I am still soaking in these Talamati lionesses, and this one on the left seems to have decided that the trachea or the windpipe is what she wants to chew on. And so every now and then she picks it up and she pulls it. Just taking a breather for now though. You can see she's still got a lot of blood all over her face. Wow, she's beautiful. So there are some vultures that have been flying around, and that's why she keeps looking up every now and then. Kind of just checking in between mouthfuls, bit of spatial awareness of what's around her, in case there might be other predators that are attracted. It always amazes me how resourceful the animals have to be out here. It's really not an easy life for a lion, and so every chance you get, you've kind of got to take everything that you can. So she's chewing on the joints, she's trying to get at the cartilage in between those joints. She's chewed up at least 10 to 15 centimeters of the windpipe already. And the windpipe is actually mostly just cartilage, it's not much else, so she really is trying to get everything she can out of this. I know Ali the other day was talking about Marib's having the most fluffy ears. I think she might actually be a competitor for fluffy ears. She seems to have a heck of a lot of hair coming out of those ears. Looks like she's finally really starting to break into the joint there. You can see actually in between bites she's also licking just to try and clean away a bit of the meat and sinew and things like that around the bones and the joints. There you can see now that that lioness is up. Look at her condition. You can see she's quite thin. She doesn't look well. The overall feeling that you get when you look at her is quite... It's initially actually quite a bit of alarm because you can notice very, very quickly that she's not in good condition. I mean, that being said, she's alert, her tail's flicking. She's feeding, which is a really good sign. But there you can see quite a bit of damage to her hips and her back. There's quite a lot of caked blood in amongst the hairs, and it's on both sides. It's not even just the one side. She still seems to be walking fine though, which is good news. There you can see the big wound on her back right. So that's actually almost a chunk that's been taken out. And that could be from a number of things. That could be from the buffalo fighting back if she was there during the hunt. It could even be from other lions. I'm very happy that she is still eating, and she's found quite a good spot there with a decent amount of meat on it. So I'm going to stay here and keep watching her feed and just see what her condition looks like a little bit later.
So from eating lions to drinking elephants, we've got a second elephant bull, the one at the back that has joined the bigger bull this afternoon. And I'm just going to keep quiet and enjoy the sounds of the birds, and you might even be able to hear the water when the elephant drops some of it out the trunk. always nice to just sit quietly and enjoy watching the animals without too many distractions. But I think when we are finished with these elephants, we'll continue further south into the reserve and see what else we can find this afternoon.
Welcome to some hungry lions that are still feeding on the very little bit of carcass left that was a buffalo. I'm really hoping the wind doesn't cover the sound, but just listen to the sounds of the crunching and the birds in the background. Incredible scene. So this lioness is just slowly shearing away bits of meat from the neck. That's that noise that you could hear. Now she's cleaning up where she's just sheared the meat off, giving it a lick. So the part of a carcass that lions would start to eat first would actually depend on the amount of lions. Because if there's a lot of lions, they all want to eat as much as they can, and so they'll go for any part that they can have access to. But normally they would start by eating places like the rump, where there's a lot of muscle, so just on either side of the hip. And then they might open the stomach cavity. That's often where a lot of blood collects, so that they can lap up the blood and eat some of the vital organs for things like minerals. So normally any predator, when they're eating at a carcass, would start in the places where there's the most meat for your effort, if that makes sense. Because you never know what's going to come along. There might be a coalition of big males that come along and chase them off, and so by the time that happens, any predator wants to make sure that they've eaten as much as they can for the energy that they've spent. There you can hear her shearing again. Probably, it sounds really weird, I know, but probably one of my favorite sounds in the world is that slicing. Fascinates me how it changes. She knows if she's in a small, thin area, then she slices in short, quick slices with her teeth. But if it's a big, thick area like that skin on the neck, it's these very long, slow slicing sounds through the meat. The wind's just picked up, so that's why she's lifted her head, checking her surroundings a bit. Also just panting. I think she's very hot and tired from the effort of this. I certainly can't imagine trying to eat a whole buffalo on my own, even with friends. It's a lot of effort. So most of that front leg is actually still intact, and you'll actually see with majority of carcasses that you'll find predators at, there's not very much meat to be gained from especially the foreleg. So kind of looking from the knee down, around the ankles, around the hooves, there's not very much meat there. So that's why she's focusing on the top more towards the shoulder, where your bicep would be. Nadia, 12 years old, thank you so much for your question. Yes, this certainly would attract other predators to the carcass. Wind will carry the scent of this carcass a lot further. And so anything downwind will be able to smell this, especially things like hyenas that have such sensitive noses. On a good day, they might be able to pick this up from 10, 15 kilometers away, which is incredible. So the wind would certainly act against the lions once they've actually fed, in terms of protecting their carcass. But it has its benefits. It keeps them cool. It also keeps the meat cool, especially on an overcast day like today. So the meat won't go off as quickly, which means they've got more time to eat it. It also means, luckily they actually haven't had to pull it all the way into shade underneath a thicket, because it is cool enough that they can feed out in the open. The wind would have definitely helped them catch this buffalo if there was wind, which there definitely was yesterday. There was quite a strong wind that came up, because they can use that to stalk from downwind. It'll really cover the sounds and smells of them approaching. But it certainly will be catching some hyenas' attention, because it's getting stronger and stronger as the day goes on. So I'm sure somewhere there is a hyena that might be making its way towards us. It's probably one of my favorite interactions to see is lions and hyenas at a carcass. Lions in general, when they're feeding, are incredible. This is a very mild occasion at the dinner table for them. You can see majority of them are just flat sleeping. So usually there'd be so much noise happening from the lions themselves, growling and snarling at each other, that you wouldn't really be able to hear much else. But because there's so little left, and there's only 2 lionesses feeding, it's quite a tame event in that sense. What you can see on the far right-hand side is 2 of the lionesses are lying with one leg in the air and these massive bellies exposed to that breeze. So I'm sure they are particularly grateful for the breeze today. Imagine trying to keep a massive meat-filled belly of that size cool. They're almost mirror images of each other. John, it would probably be a good few days before these lions need to hunt again. With bellies that size, it's going to take them quite a while to digest all of that red meat and then get their energy back enough that they need to hunt. That being said, we've seen it before where lions might be incredibly full, but if something presents itself, just happens to walk into them by chance, they will still go for something, but they won't actively need to hunt for at least another 3 or 4 days, I would think. They are very, very full. It's actually incredible. Having so much red meat in the system physically almost exhausts them. So only the very energetic ones or the slightly more energetic ones would get up and go for something that presents itself right now. Pretty much all of the energy of their bodies would go straight to their digestive system. This lioness has decided enough is enough. Time for a cat nap, but she's not moving away from that carcass. She's too full for that. Can't move with a belly that size. There she's got the trachea, the windpipe that would feed the lungs with oxygen. So it's obviously quite a chewy and flexible pipe because it would have to move with the body. I'm not really sure how much nutrition you would actually get out of eating a structure like that, because there's not much meat on it. It's mostly the kind of structure that holds its shape. So I'm definitely going to keep watching this lioness. Hopefully she gets a decent amount of food in.
Hi, we are Yaku and Milani. We are from Gauteng in South Africa. We started watching WildEarth last year during the level 5 lockdown, and we've been watching ever since.
Being in nature is one of the greatest feelings. We absolutely love it. Our favorite thing about WildEarth is that the concept is so amazing. We have the benefit of having a wildlife safari in the comfort of your home, especially when you're not allowed to go out. Being part of the Wildlife Explorer program gives us a sense of giving back and contributing to nature. It just makes us feel good because we love it so much. We are so excited to be visiting Ngala. It is obviously, I think for most people, an absolute dream to visit the Masai Mara. We can't wait to go.
Thank you very much for this amazing prize, WildEarth.
WildEarth Explorers. It's in your nature.
We're in the center of the reserve. It's a much more open area, so a completely different experience. It's also in the afternoon, so just a little bit hot, shall we say. We're following some lion tracks, and then we found the scat of a lion cub. So we didn't see the lions, but we decided to leave the area. It was getting a bit too dense and a bit too thick. So we've come all the way down to the water hole to have a little break, and then we're going to keep walking and see what else we can find. And TJ himself actually reminded us at the start of the walk that when you're on the vehicle, it's all about observing. But when you're on a walk, it's all about immersing yourself in nature, being part of the ecosystem. And that's exactly what happened today.
This is a battle of two great carnivores of the African wilderness. Whew. Whoa! You don't want to be under those jaws. Definitely, this round goes to the lion. Look at that. Fantastic.
Expect the unexpected here on WildEarth Daily.
So we have managed to find a few female giraffes. And as you can see, they're both busy feeding, one a little bit lower to the ground than the other. And have a look at the bush that the giraffe on the left is feeding on. Light green leaves once again, so fresh spring shoots coming out. Have a look at the prominent thorns on that tree that the giraffe is feeding on as well. A physical adaptation to help the tree prevent overbrowsing from animals such as this giraffe. Let's see how the giraffe doesn't mind them too much and strips some of the leaves off and then moves off. That plant that they were feeding on and that they're moving to now both feed on. The first one was definitely a red thorn. I'll just have a quick look at the second with my binoculars. Second one looks like it might also be a red thorn. Maybe a nilotica scented pot thorn, but I think probably a red thorn given the area that we're in. You can see, look at those long eyelashes as well. It's quite cool to watch her use that long purple coloured tongue and the way she maneuvers her lips around the branches to strip the leaves. So a technique that often females will bend their necks down to feed on branches lower to the ground, whereas the bigger bulls will look for the taller trees right up top where their necks can reach to feed on those leaves. But recently, with these spring leaves coming through on a lot of the smaller plants, we've also been seeing the giraffe bulls dropping their head down to feed on the fresh growth. Also a whole bunch of red-billed oxpeckers on the back of this female that we currently have in picture. You can see how they're gleaning off the coat of the giraffe, almost always from a top to bottom motion, sort of going down the coat, except for that one at the top. And basically they're looking to pull off any ticks or other parasites that might be sitting on this female giraffe. Got a friend there as well, a little bit lower to the ground, the fork-tailed drongo, the darker bird in picture. I think it might be hidden for now, just against the dark bark of that thorn tree, but when it does fly, you'll see it pop in and out, and that drongo is just waiting for the giraffe to disturb any insects. So we'll leave these two female giraffes feeding and continue down to one more waterhole in the south known as Dog Dam. But for the time being, we'll send you over to Mike, who has managed to find something interesting on Bushwalk.
Well, howdy everyone. So we are looking at, I'm not really sure what we're looking at, to be honest. It looks like a fur ball, as bits of bone, like very hard bits of bone, and fur, lots of grass in there. And then in this one here, which was next to it, you can actually see a hoof from an impala. And this fur is a very red color, so this is impala fur. I think that this is the regurgitated fur ball from a lion, perhaps a leopard, but it looks quite big, I think from a lion. Now, I don't think that this was defecated, because there's no solid matter here. It's just the fur and the hoofs and things. These are things that don't get digested easily. So I suspect what's happened here is that this has been caught in the stomach, not sinking and floating and going through the system, and it's been regurgitated by this predator, whatever it was. And I mean, this would really get stuck in all the system, so it's not good if it gets too deep in there. I mean, and look at these shards of bone in here. Let me just move this out the way. Look at these shards of bone, how sharp they are. That will cause terrible problems for anyone's digestive tract. But whatever animal ate this, I mean, it could even be hyena, potentially. Whatever animal ate this had very strong jaws, was able to crunch this bone. It's hard bone. It's not soft at all. That is a solid piece of bone from maybe a rib or something. It's crazy. Sally, and you know, I don't think this will decompose for a long, long time. I mean, years and years. What will happen, because this, like hair, is very resilient. It's made of keratin fibers, and bone is, of course, bone, so it doesn't break down so easily. And so this will take many years to break down. What will happen is this will start to fall apart, and you won't be able to see it anymore, because the bones would have been kicked about and picked around by birds, maybe, and these hair fibers will have spread themselves into the bush. But certainly it will remain, you know, persistent in the veldt or in the bush for a very, very long time. I mean, I don't know how long this has been here. This must have been, oh, there's a beetle in there. Oh, check this out. Just in here, BK, I don't know if is that a beetle? I think it's some sort of insect that's in there. I can't see it clearly, but it seemed to move to me. Maybe I'm imagining things. But yeah, so decomposers will help to break that down. There will be types of insects that will eat keratin fibers, which is what you're seeing here. And so they will break this down quicker than if it just sits here. But it's very dry at the moment. There's not too many insects moving about, so there's not much that's breaking it down. But also look at this thing. What is this? That looks like a shell. This animal might even have been eating shells. I mean, I don't know where it would have found a shell. Do any of you at home recognize what part of the anatomy this might have come from? It looks like a shell to me, but I can't imagine where this thing might have found a shell like this that looks really like a seashell. I'm wondering if it's not the cap of a tiny horn, if it was a tiny animal that it ate, or maybe like a cartilaginous joint. Yeah, it's super strange to see a shell. I mean, look where we are right now. If you have a look around us, I'm making BK do all sorts of activities. If you look around us, we're in the middle of this open field. Some of you who've been watching for a while know this is zebra clearings. So there's no water right here. And of course, the few dams that we have don't generally have seashells in them, you know. I mean, we sometimes find in rivers the remains of some freshwater mussels and things like that, but not seashells like this. So that is a very odd thing, and I really don't know what it is. I might actually take a photo of that and try and send it to some friends of mine to see what they think it might be. And I mean, of course, I'd love to hear from you all if you really think that this is a shell, or if you might know better than I if this is some part of an anatomy that I'm not fully aware of. Because it's also quite thick in the middle there. It's very thin on the edges, but in the middle it's very thick. So it's really quite a mystery. So whilst I try and figure out this mystery, I'll send you over to Tessa, who's got a bird of prey.
I really hope you figure out what that is, Mike. A very interesting case of a mystery in the bush. So I'm sitting here while the lions are still kind of feeding on the carcass at Djuma. And we've got our first vulture that has actually landed in a tree and is watching what's happening. So this is a hooded vulture. It's usually the first species of vulture to arrive at any carcass. And they're normally alone. So this is definitely not a mystery. We tend to know what's happening here, considering that vultures can be so predictable. You can see it sitting right at the top of the tree. And it kind of keeps looking over to the right. That's where the lions are feeding. But it'll also be looking out for other vultures, because other vultures mean competition. So what this vulture is hoping for is honestly just as soon as the lions give it a chance, it'll come down and start feeding, whether it's on the carcass itself or on scraps that have been left lying around as the lions have been moving the carcass while they've fed. Or even actually on some lion feces, some lion poo. Very, very high in content for this hooded vulture. And definitely not an uncommon sight for us either. It really is keeping a watchful eye out. So what it wants to make sure of is before it comes down, it wants to make sure that there's no lions that are up close to the area that it wants to land. Vultures are renowned for being terrible at landing and taking off because their wingspan is so big. So it needs to make sure it's got an open enough spot that it can make a quick getaway if a lion decides they don't want any guests for lunch. Clara, it is definitely a stunning view of this vulture. Because of the clouds in the background, it is a little bit silhouetted, but it actually helps because it accentuates some of the features. You can see how curved and sharp the beak is. And when it actually moves its head around, you can also see how long the neck is too. But look how carefully it's checking every little angle that it can. That head has not stopped moving since it landed. So I think the idea for this vulture is try and get as much food as you can before other vultures arrive. Because once other vultures start picking up on this, it's going to be a feeding frenzy. So it really is being very hopeful that there's some scrap lying a bit further away from the carcass. You can see it's right at the top of that tree. Got a beautiful view over the lions. And I'm hoping you can hear that crunching in the background. So you can see it's actually not that far from where the lions are. I guess in total distance, maybe 20 to 30 meters away. Probably looks a lot longer on camera. But the lions haven't really noticed that the vulture's there, or most of them anyway. You can see they are very, very sleepy. And it's still only the 2 lionesses that are near the carcass. The one is actually sitting up again. She's not sleeping flat, but she's not feeding either. She's just panting, so she's probably just a bit hot and uncomfortable. Where the lioness that really needs the food is definitely still feeding. So you'll probably find she's noticed the vulture, but it's far enough away that she's not bothered by it. So I've finally seen a second vulture. There's a white-backed vulture that's coming in way away from a distance. Just edging closer tree by tree. It's tree hopping, actually. From one canopy to the next. Probably still trying to just figure out what's going on. So I'm going to wait and see what pans out with these vultures. I think now that there's a few, a lot more will see them and start coming in. And maybe a little bit later we might get some interaction between those vultures and the lions.
Decided that we were going to do just a little bit of a little teaching session. So we've got a couple of different dungs here. Now it's very important to understand the different types of dung that you might find out in the bush so that you can figure out what animals have been around. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different types of dung here, and I'll teach you first this one. Really big, huge pile of dung. See, it's been spread about over here. That's because of different animals digging around in it and kicking it and opening it. But if I open this up, it's very dry. You can first of all see the color. It's like an orangey yellow color. Now that tells me that this animal was eating stuff from trees. Trees have a chemical called tannin, which makes them orange like this. And if I pluck this is a piece of stick. This is not grass, this is a piece of stick. So again, it gives me more evidence that this was an animal that was eating from trees. Now if I open this gently up, some grass in there, but lots of sticks. And the big size, this tells me there's even some bits of fruit in there just by my thumb. So this was an elephant. This is an elephant dung, one that's been broken open a little bit. Okay, by an animal that was trying to dig for grubs and beetles. And then from there we move over here. Much smaller and an irregular shape. Some people say it kind of has a heart shape or like a triangular shape. Do you see that? See that bit of a triangle there? This is very typical of warthog. So warthogs are omnivorous, so we don't touch this with our hands because they eat all sorts of nasty things and can have bacteria in there. Then from warthog, we'll move to something that looks a lot like warthog. Over here, this is zebra dung. Now, zebras only eat grass. It's the same color as warthog, but it always breaks open in half, just like that. Okay, even if I take this one, watch this, breaks in half. That's zebra dung. Looks like a kidney bean. The last one, of course, most of you will recognize. Classic impala, little tiny pellets that have had all all the moisture absorbed in them, making them very hard and very dry. These ones are excellent for a type of game that we like to play in South Africa, which maybe I'll explain at a later date.
Well, we came looking for our boy, and sure enough, he's walked out right in front of us, which is quite lovely. Hopefully he's going to stay where he is, because we can't move. Our signal is a little sketchy where we are. If he moves up the slope, the further he goes, the better it is for us, so he's walking the right way. But yeah, for now, we're not going to be able to move too much, so we're just going to have to watch him through the little thickets, walking across this burnt section. It's nice to see a leopard on the burnt stuff. I always like the kind of contrast of the life and the beauty of a leopard against the stark, kind of dead, barren landscape of an area that's been burnt in a fire. I think it's a very, very cool kind of way to go about things. Morgan, does that mean we win?
That does mean we win.
Oh, well done, Morgan. It's actually Morgan who spotted Marips first. We saw a giraffe staring in the distance, and then it started eating, and I was saying to Morgan, it was definitely staring at something, and as I said that, then he kind of came out of the drainage line in front of us, which is good. The thing is he's heading now slowly kind of up. If he keeps going this way, he'll eventually hit the sort of Djuma tortured boundary. It's a long way from here, but if he does head that direction, it'll be really cool to get him back onto Djuma, but I don't think he'll go too far that way. There's water right here, there's a drainage line, lots of food in this area, so there's no need for him to be moving too much towards Djuma. There's not a lot of water in the areas that are to the eastern side of Djuma. It's cool to see him though. He's getting so big. A lot of you are saying, yeah, it's been a while since you've seen Marips. Didn't you see him 3 days ago, 2 days ago? I'm sure it was 2 days ago. But yeah, anytime we can see him, I think every drive is a good enough drive for him. I think as long as we get to see him regularly, it's always nice. But like I say, he's getting so big now. He's starting to look more and more like a male leopard and less cubbish. It's not long now, and he's going to be on his own. And I was talking about his antics and how he's been doing things lately. He's going to drive his mother to push him a little bit further away from this area, and he's going to end up, unfortunately, on his own for a little bit. I'll be keen to see where he heads, because Shasha and Semba and Marips have all got to fit somewhere. We've seen Shasha moving around quite a bit, so you're going to lie down there. Delightful, right behind all of the sticks. I mean, I can try and move a little bit, but the problem is our signal is going to be a bit of a mess if we do move too much and it drops. Alright, I'm going to try and see if I can reposition. In the meantime, though, let's send you across to Tessa with her lines. It's a cool photograph.
Well done, Tristan, on finding Marips. I kind of figured you'd win the challenge. I didn't really stand much of a chance to start with, but I thought it might be fun. But that's okay. So a lot of the Talamati pride has kind of started looking up and then flopping back down again, which is a sign that maybe they might move around a little bit more just now. The temperature has dropped quite substantially in the last 20 minutes. And I think what actually caught most of their attention, other than the cooling temperature, was you can see that lioness is looking up. She's a sub-adult lioness, and that's because we've now got 3 or 4 different vultures circling above us. And so quite a few of the lions are waking up to watch and then putting their heads back down, just making sure of what's around, because those vultures are going to attract other predators. But at the same time, if the vulture lands, it's still taking some of their food. And lions don't particularly like sharing. On the whole, the atmosphere is still quite relaxed. But that's because none of the vultures have tried to push their luck yet. can definitely see the sub-adult lioness right on the left-hand side is a lot more alert than the others. She's actually moved her whole body position to face where that vulture was sitting in the tree. And that's not a particularly comfortable position when you've got a full stomach, so she's actually done that deliberately. You can imagine when you're lying on a full stomach, it's not the most comfortable thing. So when a lion positions itself like that, especially after feeding, it usually isn't for very long because it's uncomfortable, but it's also a combination of, okay, be a little bit uncomfortable, but at the same time be ready to run if you need to run at something. And because she is still quite young, I suppose you would imagine it as almost a game, but you can see her eyes are looking up all the time, watching these vultures. I'd be very interested to see when the hyenas decide to come in. So while we keep watching these lions and vultures having their little interaction, let's have a look at an upcoming expedition to the Masai Mara in 2022.
The Masai Mara in Kenya is an iconic wilderness filled with life. Its inspirational beauty has captivated our hearts on WildEarth for many years. While this season of the world's greatest migration has been missed, WildEarth is preparing a spectacular comeback in 2022. For the first time ever, WildEarth will be running expeditions to Kenya's Masai Mara throughout the 2022 migration season. Hosted by David Githu and Isaac Rotich, you could be a part of the team that shares the wildebeest migration with the world, live on WildEarth's daily safaris. If you're interested, then head over to our website to find out more.
So we have made it to the waterhole deep in the southern part of Ngala, known as Dog Dam. Unfortunately, the wild dogs are nowhere to be seen, so I'm sure they must be in the Manyaleti. But we have got two really nice hippos, and you can see the one with his head out the water having a bit of a look in our direction. What I noticed when looking at him, he's got a lot of scarring on his back. Prominent scars, more than likely from another hippo in a bit of an altercation where they were fighting potentially over a waterhole just like this. My guess would be that maybe these two hippos that are in the water, the one at the back we've just seen nostrils, not much else. But they look like they might be two old hippo bulls, just making use of the few water or the little water remaining this season. I think these two hippos that are in this waterhole have got it a little bit easier than the ones we saw this morning, just by the fact that there seems to be better grass in this part of the reserve this year. Which means that they probably don't have to move as big a distance as the other ones do. Big marula tree at the back. There's a bird. I don't know, there's a very big bird that I've just spotted on the marula tree at the back. We might not be able to get the clearest picture. Let's have a look. Oh, that is brilliant on the camera. Oh, see how big it is as well. Very big wingspan. Quite pale, and it's just in its starting to transition to its adult plumage. It looks like a juvenile martial eagle. Beautiful to watch that martial eagle fly off away from the waterhole and into the Manyaleti Reserve. Oh, They landed for us. A question from Byron, age 13. Biggest competition for hippos? More than likely other hippos. So especially for old males like these two that we've got in the water here, if a younger, stronger bull comes in and wants to make this waterhole his territorial area, there's a good chance he'll try and fight and might even end up chasing off these old bulls. Other than that, we've seen lions, not really competition, but they do make hippos a little bit nervous. But elephants and buffaloes coming down to the water, often they'll walk right into the waterhole to drink. And the hippos are not the biggest fans of that because they like holding the waterhole to themselves. So sometimes they try and chase those animals away. I've seen it go both ways. I've seen elephants being chased by hippos, but I've also seen hippos being chased by elephants and buffaloes as well. And you can imagine a herd of 300 buffaloes came down to this waterhole. There wouldn't be very much space for these two hippos. So they just have to move off into a corner and just sit nice and tight and wait for the buffaloes to move off. And just referencing back to that juvenile martial eagle that we saw, it's amazing how when you stop at a waterhole and just spend a little bit of time, how much more pops out when you start to look. I mean, you have a look around at the trees, good chance of spotting a bird of prey. We had a species of waterbird here a little bit earlier, and because we've been in our winter birding season, everyone's a little bit rusty, trying to ID it, and it took us a little while. We're now stuck between potentially it being a common sandpiper and a curlew sandpiper. But we'll have to do a bit of practice and revise our waterbirds for the upcoming summer season. We actually managed to spot it. One of the blacksmith lapwings was chasing the sandpiper. Quite a cool interaction to see. The Geraffe is now showing you the bully of Dog Dam that chased the sandpiper away that we were trying to ID. It would have been super cool to still have it here, because then I could have asked some of you keen birders out there if you could potentially help us with the ID. So we'll leave the blacksmith lapwings and the hippo and start making our way. Keep heading around a loop in the south, and then I think start heading back towards the Timbawati River and see what's moving around there a little bit later this afternoon.
As WildEarth has shown, a guide is critical to your enjoyment when on safari. Safari Guide of the Year is an annual event which creates awareness for these men and women who dedicate their lives to tourism and wildlife. WildEarth fully supports this initiative that gives more credit to a profession that drives our economy and flies South African flags higher than most. In the lead up to our live award ceremony, where the Safari Guide of the Year 2021 will be crowned, we are inviting all our viewers to join us for a special fireside chat. Open to everyone, this unique event invites some of the top guides in the country to Djuma on the 26th of September, straight after the Sunset Safari.
We had a very exciting start to our morning this morning. Today, it's our guided sunrise safari with Mike, and we started by looking at the moon through a telescope, which was incredible.
It's in fact the shadow of the Earth.
It's been a very different drive from all the other ones, very interactive.
Your pigeal gland is something the hoopoes have in common.
Hi. This morning's drive with Mike was thoroughly enjoyable. He really engaged us, but we also did some birding, and I managed to add a few new birds onto my list. Overall, every single experience with all the competitors has been really incredible, but it's up to the judges now.
Look looks like it's a very difficult climb because every time it tries to climb, the ground is breaking, so it slides down. But it's the only one. Look at that. That is the call of desperation with a cub. It's like, what are you doing, mommy? Oops. Oof.
Expect the unexpected here on WildEarth daily.
So I am still sitting with this beautiful sub-adult from the Talamati Pride. He has just decided the vultures are not worth his effort. He was tracking them with his eyes. And now he's gone back to sleep, much like the rest of the Pride. Although there is a little bit more activity now that it is cooling down a lot. But also because there's a lot more vultures that have been flying in and out. So as much as you might not think it from these lions that are lying flat on their backs, they have actually been kind of moving around a little bit just to watch the activity around them. But I can't imagine there's much more of a comfortable lie down and sleep than lions with a full tummy. So I would think the lions will stay in this area for the next day or two until the carcass is completely finished, although there's not much left. And then what they'd probably do is actually move a little bit further away from this area in the next 2 or 3 days, because the carcass is going to attract other predators. It might attract other lions. If lions notice a big commotion of hyenas and vultures at a carcass, they'll come in and investigate. So this kind of would depend on what the activity is here. Because it's nice and cool, they can move really far without it being an issue. So I wouldn't think they'd stay in this particular area for too long. With their movements in the last while, it almost seems like they're coming further south and east, which would mean they might end up on maybe the Djuma property or just north of it. At the moment, though, they look way too full to be doing anything, so they'd have to wait until at least they've digested some of that red meat before they can move with those big bellies. She's trying to groom, but maybe she's a little bit too full to reach the spots she wants to. So grooming like that is a sign of movement. She might get up and move towards the other lines of the pride, away from those two. She might just move to a different position and sleep again. It's probably one of the most interesting things to watch, though, especially after a kill. Once the lions are fed and they start getting a bit more active again, when they all start grooming each other, is really special to watch, because you know, that's how lions are improving their bonds. So if she's grooming another lioness, she's bonding with that lioness. It's always very special to see. She definitely looks uncomfortable in her movements. I think she's eaten so much that she's struggling to maneuver. Harper, lions won't move just based on the season. They're actually very territorial, but those territories are incredibly large. And she's just greeted Dark Mane. And so they would move within their territory. It might be related to seasonal changes, so things like buffalo herds moving around. Water availability is a big one. And so that would also affect the herbivores. So those are the kind of movements that you would be thinking of within their territory. Lions won't very often leave their territories, so any movements that they make would be within the larger territory area. The males obviously would be able to move a lot further because their territory might encompass a few different prides' territories, so it would be a lot bigger. But they will move depending on the water availability and things like that, so that would, in a way, relate to the season. It wouldn't be the kind of migration, though, that you would see in the Masai Mara, for example, with large-scale herbivore migrations. So we definitely got a little bit more activity. It almost looks like now that it's cooled down, even though she's got such a full belly, she's positioned herself next to the carcass. So she might be intending to feed just now. But I love how as she walked over, she went and rubbed her face against dark mane. Greeting, bonding. Lions are incredibly special animals. There's definitely some flies around that carcass. Look how she has to keep flicking her ears.
I'm crossing over into Buffalo's Hook.
She almost started feeding then and she changed her mind. I think she had second thoughts. She started and then decided, it tastes good, but I don't have any more space. And now she's just having a game of fly catch. It's amazing that that lioness with the purple eye, that's still feeding. She has been consistently feeding the entire time that we've been here. So what you're seeing is literally her getting every little bit that she can because of her condition. When you compare that to all of these other lions that are literally passed out, or that lick the carcass, like the taste, but don't have the space, so they change their minds. Sounds like me when I'm eating dinner. She's got a slight limp going on the front left there. Getting some growling. You can see the lioness at the back got very unhappy. She flattened her ears straight away and gave this lioness a warning. She almost looked like she was going to sit on this lioness lying flat on her side there. Mikey, lions can definitely see some colors. The structure of the eye is a little bit different to ours. Your color comes from structures in your eye called rods and cones, which you find on the back surface of your eye on the inside. So the way that we would actually tell with different animals if they can see in color or not is whether or not there are those rods and cones, that actual little structures in their eye. So we know that they can see some color, but definitely not like we can. That being said, it's also possible that they can see colors that we can't, which I think is actually really cool. I would love to have some form of almost like a virtual reality headset or goggles that you could put on where you could flick through the different species and see how they see the world. I think that would be absolutely incredible. Just to kind of compare it to what we see at the moment. Nothing quite like that bright scarlet red in the bush, though, when you're looking at a carcass. It definitely stands out. I'm surprised at how closely those two are feeding. Their noses are almost touching as they're biting. That's quite unusual because that lioness already gave this lioness a warning. But I guess if that's where the best meat is left, they'll have to feed very close together. can kind of still faintly hear some tearing sounds coming from the carcass. Especially there in the rib section where this bigger lioness is pulling meat. Alright, so I think I'm going to stick around for just a little bit longer and see if the other lions also start moving around, considering they've been showing some activity. But I'm hoping that we will get a few more of them that aren't lying flat on their sides for you just now.
So as you can see, we are now on a little bit of a bumble, still in the southern part of Ngala. And in discussion just back towards the sandpiper that we think we might have seen after having a look at the distribution and a closer look at some of the variations in the color of the bird. We think that it might have been a common sandpiper that we saw, which is usually quite an easy bird to ID. So it shows we've got a little bit of dusting off to do before all of our summer migrants return. But we're coming to one of the nicer big open spaces on Ngala, an area we refer to as Spring Valley, which is the road we're on, and then Manyeleti Road, which is the road that we're about to turn onto. And this area in front of us has had a controlled burn this year, just to try and clear out some of the old dead growth, which is referred to as moribund, the old grass. And essentially the burn will help promote new growth and bring nice new green grass, clear out any of the old dead trees that have been pushed over by elephants, and essentially refresh an area. Something we might expect to find down here, which you might not see too often on WildEarth, is an ostrich. So that'll be something we're going to be keeping our eyes out for in the next sort of 30 minutes. As well as, it's a very tricky animal to find on Ngala and quite a rare species. But maybe if we're super lucky and we've got our eyes tuned in, we might even be lucky enough to spot a cheetah. But we'll just keep checking the south, and as I mentioned earlier, start making our way towards the Timbavati riverbed and just go and see what's happening around that part of the reserve.
So there is definitely a little bit more action happening here at Djuma Private Game Reserve. So we've now got 4 lionesses, varying ages from sub-adult to adult, that are very close around the carcass. They're taking turns feeding, it seems, but they're definitely a lot more alert now. And so what I'm hoping is that the other 5, as it gets cooler, actually 6, the other 6 as it gets cooler, will also get up and come over. At this rate, there will be nothing left of this carcass by tomorrow. Wow, that lioness is really getting in there under that ribcage. She's pushing the whole carcass up. Jabulo, that's an excellent question. Lions actually don't purr like house cats. The only big cat that does is actually a cheetah. So lions will growl and roar, but they won't purr. And it's actually a difference in their voice box, a structural difference. That is the difference between being able to purr and not. And so that's why if you look at the difference between a cheetah and a lion, for example. A cheetah is not as closely related to the lion. They can purr where lions cannot. So basically, how stretchy your voice box is will allow you to either purr or roar. So that lion that's just sat down is the one that actually doesn't have a tip on its tail. It's a very tough life that lions lead. It looks very glamorous, I think, when you think of how regal a lion is. But looking at the injuries on that lioness with the purple eye, looking at, lions, how many of them have broken feet like dark mane, or lost the tips of their tails, or even like the Birmingham young male at andBeyond and Ngala, who's so badly injured his hip. It's really not an easy life. I don't know where this lioness is going. She's pausing, changing her mind maybe. You can see how tired she is. Look at that panting. Even her tail is moving. She's panting so hard. And the other lioness is still trying very hard, it seems, to get underneath that rib cage. I was actually just saying to him, boy, imagine how strong you have to be to take down a buffalo. Even just to move the skeleton of a buffalo on your own, it's a lot of bone. It's very heavy. The head and the boss on its own would weigh a lot. These lions are so powerful. It always blows my mind. What is interesting is it seems to be only the lionesses and the sub-adult lionesses that are feeding. So lions and hyenas can get along. They don't always get along though. If it's at a carcass like this, they definitely won't get along because it's competition for food. They are very well known for having intense interactions. They can very easily kill each other, especially if either one is in numbers. So because they are direct competition, they don't tend to get along too well. That being said, I've been in many sightings where lions have continued feeding while hyenas are just sitting around the edge on the outskirts. So it's not as though every time they see each other they have to try and kill each other. They will tolerate each other, but of course that will depend on the situation. I'm actually very surprised no hyenas have come in here yet, because I can definitely smell this carcass from here, and we are upwind. The wind is blowing away from us and the carcass, and I can smell it. Yeah, I think the males are definitely going to be the last to get up and come back over. And that's probably because they would have been the first to feed, so they would have had the most food. So they don't need to get up and feed straight away, but they also probably just don't have the energy. I know what I'm like after a Sunday roast at home. I definitely won't get up off the couch if it's in a nice sunny spot. Paula, yes, they do look quite peaceful for now. I think it's going to get worse and worse, though, as more and more lions wake up. You can already see the tension has risen a bit with now 4 lionesses feeding as opposed to just 1 or 2. Even their movements are a lot more intentional and aggressive looking because they've now got to feed a bit faster. They've got to get a bit more in because there's others still feeding. So I think as it goes on, they won't look as peaceful or sound as peaceful. I think I've been very spoiled today with this lion sighting as is. Having gone from not seeing lions for so long to seeing this is just unbelievable. Kind of shows you how you can't ever take a single moment for granted when you're in the bush. Any adventure actually, but particularly for me, any time spent with animals is never time wasted. I think she's deciding whether or not she wants to join the feeding frenzy or if she's going to just lie down. Oh, she's joining. Might hear some noises coming out just now. Everybody seems to want the same spot, but she's distracted herself with the leg. Now you can hear the aggressive, competitive side of them coming out. Ears flattened and a lot of growling and warnings happening. This is my favorite thing about any lion kill. Wow. You can hear the vultures fighting in the background too, in the distance. This kind of also makes you realize, I mean, looking at her going underneath that rib cage, in underneath the spine, trying to get every last little bit. It makes you realize how wasteful it can be. Nothing is ever wasted in nature, but I think a lot of the time humans can be incredibly wasteful. And it just shows you it really is. Everything comes down to the small nitty-gritties in nature. And there's no possibility of ever wasting a good meal. No matter who takes it, someone will always get it. It goes where it needs to go for survival. The one in the background has decided this is not the time for feeding. Leopard lover, I love your name or your handle. Very, very cool. Behavioral differences between the Talamatis and the Birmingham Pride. I've obviously spent a lot more time with the Birmingham Pride. Behaviorally, I don't think there's any massive differences, no. I think, you know, lions are lions and they mostly exhibit the same behaviors, especially at a carcass, in terms of marking their territory and things. I think the one thing that I did notice about the Birmingham Pride was, as much as you could predict their movements, they would also really surprise you sometimes, and the dynamics would also be very surprising. So I know that the Talamatis, you know, this is just a small section of the whole Pride. And it happened very similarly with the Birmingham Pride, splitting up and then reconnecting and splitting again. Very interesting dynamics, but I think the most interesting thing for me, which really stands out, is you know, the presence of the young Birmingham male in the Birmingham Pride. You know, he stuck around for so long to the point where, you know, he's now becoming dominant, and that is not a normal kind of occurrence in a pride of lions, or not that we would see anyway. But in a general case like this, no, I don't think there's any massive differences. I think the most obvious for me is actually a physical difference, where the Birmingham lionesses are very easily the biggest lionesses I've ever seen in my life. But that being said, the Talamati Pride, these lionesses are also very big. So yeah, don't underestimate the size of them, that's for sure. But that was an excellent question. Thank you, Leopard Lover. It's actually that lioness in the middle that's growling at the other two now. Which is ironic, she was the last to sit down. Oh, look at all that blood on her face. Too tired to move further. Must sleep. Something that I've always had massive respect for, particularly in lions, because of their coat. It's quite different to leopards. In a leopard, you can see the kind of sleek structure, you can kind of see the muscle definition, but because of their coat, you can't see it too well. With the lions, though, especially that lioness on the right, you can clearly see her muscle definition in her shoulders. And that has always blown my mind. I was a swimmer, and muscle definition in my shoulders was always something I was quite conscious of. And so now that's what sticks out to me. Quite funny. But I'm going to stay here and see what else happens. I'm hoping the other lions will wake up and join the feast soon.
Scrap here collected a dry grass, put it next to the water hole as the hippo walks down during the warm of the day to drink the water. When the hippo arrives, he saw quite a very nice grass, an area not to resist to rest. And when the hippo went down to drink the water, and when he finished the water, he just lied down. And then, that was the opportunity of the scrappy. You know what? Today is my day to pay the revenge.
So we've still got these two grey go-away birds perched right at the top of this dead knob thorn. And there's not much else happening on the road that we're currently on. It's even very quiet. If you just listen for a few seconds, you'll hear there's not many birds calling, not many other noises coming from any animals around us. Don't know if you could hear that in the background, but there were some grey go-away birds vocalizing. Sounds just like them going, go-away. There is another bird in front of us, perched quite beautifully close to our vehicle. And similar to the go-away bird, have a look at the incredibly long tail feathers, much darker in colour compared to the grey of the go-away bird, and the black wings. So that one that we just had fly off was a magpie shrike. Previous name was a long-tailed shrike. But Livy was asking the most interesting bird species that we have on Ngala, and I think that would be an incredibly tricky and open-ended question to answer. I think it would be very much based on your personal preference. Some people find the raptors and the predatory birds more interesting. Some people find the smaller, more beautiful birds more interesting. For me personally, I really like the owls and the owl species that we get here, because they are predatory, which I always enjoy seeing in birds and animals, and the fact that they move around at night compared to the majority of other birds that only move around during the day, fly around at night, I guess. And I just like the fact that they're so secretive and always tucked away in branches, and then as soon as nighttime comes, they're very confident out in the open and flying around. I enjoy the way they hunt, using their incredibly good sense of hearing to pick up on little rodents moving in the grass. But I think what we're going to do is we're going to head down towards the riverbed, but we're going to send you over to Tristan, who is following a leopard.
We've managed to get a view of him. It's we're miles from him, just trying to get some semblance of signal. He came down and had a drink at Leopard Dam, and he's on the dam wall now. And we are probably, what do you reckon, 100 meters, Mas?
Yeah.
Maybe more?
I'd say more.
Yeah, so we are miles away from where he is, which is unfortunate because it's so nice where he's sitting on that little dam wall and looking so pleasant up there. It would have been great to have spend some time with him. The signal's also so unstable that I don't think we're going to be able to stay. There's other people that want to come in. There hasn't been a lot of leopards around lately, so we're going to just kind of do this, and then we'll probably leave him to himself and to others, and then we'll start to kind of head back into better signal areas on Djuma, see what we can find there. But nice that we managed to catch up with him, and I'm glad that we managed to at least get him on screen for a little bit. It's such a tricky spot here, and I don't know why. Rusty at the moment is just struggling. Wendy, I reckon, would have been absolutely fine here, but Rusty is battling with the signal. I mean, I can see the mast that we're supposed to be picking signal off clearly, so I don't know why. Maybe the weather, the wind blowing in the wrong direction, whatever it may be. But yeah, he's looking like the little prince on his dam wall. It was funny because when we came into Torchwood, I said to Morgan, I'm pretty sure that cat's going to be at Leopard Dam because it was so hot yesterday. It's going to be very, very keen for water, and it would have, all the water from the rain previously would have evaporated, and this would have been the only water really in the area. So I'm not surprised that we managed to find him just on the sort of southern side, and then coming up towards the sort of dam wall area. So Lola, is an interesting question, but I suppose he has, yes, that leopards have a natural immunity to, or natural resilience, maybe let's put it that, rather than immunity to leopard, to snake bites. So, they live a life where they're going to come across snakes, so there must be some sort of immunity to it. But in the same breath, I have seen other leopards die from snake bites. We had a leopard in Singita that got hit by a puffadder in the chest and died from it. So I think it just depends where they get hit, how much envenomation, how old they are, what is their general body condition. I think was lucky because he was at an age where he's not a cub, but he was also not he's not an old individual with failing organs or anything like that. So young, healthy, strong, and there's a natural kind of immunity towards the venom, and maybe he didn't get envenomated heavily. Maybe it was just a nick on the foot, nothing too major. It's difficult to say whether or not they all are that way, but like I say, some of them I've seen have unfortunately been or succumbed to snake envenomations. Michael, difficult to know. I don't think quarantine's gone. I think he's just probably hanging around in Kruger. You never know. Maybe how many females are on that side. If there's females that have got cubs, that he's actively patrolling those areas. So that could be the case. I mean, and we also know in wildlife that anything can happen on any day. You can have fit, healthy individuals that all of a sudden get caught by lions, or they, end up fighting with another male and then pushed off into another territory. And if you look at the way Tingana's territory worked, and Mvula's and Mafufunyan and Jordan and Anderson, Tyson, all of the leopards that were, in this area, you'll know that there was a massive shift and change in the territories throughout their life. And so maybe pressure has just led to him kind of moving into the Kruger, away from anywhere where we can see him, and outside of the Sabi Sands into that area where we're talking about. There's very little tourism. There's no tourist roads there at all. So there could be big blocks there where he's just living and no one even knows he's there. So maybe that's where he is. I don't know. Maybe he's not, something's happened to him. It's impossible to say. But it has been a while since there's been any updates. But we also went through a period where we didn't see him a lot. And then all of a sudden he popped up for a few times and then gone again. So let's see. I mean, with the likes of Watika, Monzo, Inkanyeni, if they start coming to estrus cycles, maybe that will pull them into that area. Doesn't he look so stoic up there? He's definitely got the male leopard pose down. Windy, difficult to say. Maybe not. Always when it comes to sizes of leopards and whether he'll be bigger than Hosanna or not is really tricky to tell. The genetic in him, we don't know what that kind of is made up of. We don't know, if he's going to be big than Hosanna. And you would never really know unless you saw the two of them together. What I will say is that he's got big feet and big ears like Tamba. And so it's very possible that he's going to be much more of Tamba's ilk, so stocky, big in terms of width, but not necessarily very tall. But if you look at Semba, for example, who's similar genetics, it's Tandi's daughter and theoretically the same father, he's a very big cat. So maybe he will be bigger. I don't know. We'll have to just wait and see. For his age, he's pretty normal. He's not monstrous for his age. He's not a kind of crazy sized leopard. In fact, he's pretty bang on average in terms of his size. Nothing else about him is average, but his size is. Still looking around. You must find this dam so entertaining because there's so many birds that come down and various creatures that he can potentially chase. Lisa is a beautiful boy. We've been lucky with him. We've had so many great sightings. I think everybody that has, had the pleasure of driving around here has at some point, and when I talk about everybody, I'm talking about, the guides, has at some point had a really good sighting with him. He's one of those cats that you might not get it every day, but some days there will be absolute pandemonium with him. We've had him stalking elephants, stalking buffalo, interacting with snakes, killing that monitor lizard, killing guinea fowl, chasing guinea fowl. Everybody's had a day where they've just kind of come away shaking their head as to say, this cat's an absolute clown. But he's so entertaining, and I think that's why he's kind of endeared himself to so many of you that watch, and he's become so popular is because of his antics. He's very much in the same mold. Sorry, excuse me. I know the whole frame shakes when I move, but very much in the same mold of Hosana in terms of the antics that he had, or that he does and constantly portrays. So, you know, I think we're lucky that we have cats like this and that they're habituated enough. And it's crazy to think, you know, a year ago, he was, you know, people would say that he's skittish and he's shy and he doesn't want to be seen and it's not worth trying to look for him. And it just literally took like 3 weeks of just finding him and sticking with him, and one car at a time. Then, you know, after 3 weeks it was a second car, and then he was fine after that, you know. So he's definitely kind of grown into himself, and he's provided all of us with some amazing sighting. So, Joy from Hong Kong, when it comes to coat colors and things like that, it's always difficult to say because, funny enough, in animals, coat colors can change a little bit, particularly in lighter colored animals. You often find that they start to darken a little bit. So, like white lions, for example, can often become a lot more tawny in coloration as they get older. They'll never be fully tawny like the others, but they do lose that pure white. If you look at them as cubs versus when they're adults, it's not quite the same coloration. So his pale coat probably will stay. It might get a little bit more yellow rather than gold, but I don't think he'll ever be dark in coloration like his mom. I think he'll remain as a light colored animal. I don't think he's going to darken too much. And if Milawati is his dad, and of course those are always, you know, the things that we kind of think about and hopefully it will be proven at some point, then you'll find that Mulawati has quite a light colored coat too. He's not a very dark leopard, so maybe that genetic is passed on to him and he'll eventually kind of stay that color. He's seen something now, which is pretty typical. If he moves from here, unfortunately, that's it. So literally, it's taken me 45 minutes to find this spot to get signal. And we can't even move the camera because if we zoom the camera in and out, it makes the signal drop. So, you know. Morgan, did you get a better reflection? Junebug, I got Junebug, but I didn't get the...
Would Jonty's car get better reception?
Would Jonty's car... I mean, a baby blue beetle would probably get all the reception. It would also be because we could just make Jonty stand on the car with the antenna, and it would be about 25 feet into the air. So signal would kind of, you know, be caught from everywhere. It would be like having your own mobile mast. In fact, that's what we should have done. We should have just made Jonty, strap him to the back here, put him on the back pole and just make him hold like the Statue of Liberty. Exactly. We'll have a 20-foot antenna. It will be perfect. We'll pick up signal everywhere in the reserve. I think that's the answer to this. And every now and then we'll mic him up so he can have a chat. Otherwise, we'll just, you know, tape the mouth shut with some tape and everything will be fine. All right, we're going to leave Mareeps. We'll make space for somebody else. We're going to head back to Djuma. Go try and see if maybe we can find the female that left those tracks behind this morning. Been nice though that we managed to get to see the little prince.
Welcome back to the Talamatis feasting on this buffalo. Because there are quite a few feeding, listen to the sounds of that meat tearing off of the carcass. It's unbelievable. takes keeping an eye on your food to the next level when you've actually got a paw resting on it. This is such a spoil. I'm loving spending time watching this pride do their thing.
What on earth do we have here? It looks like a strange hammock. And in fact, it is a kind of a hammock. This is a nest. I found it in some undergrowth underneath a bush, just like what's behind us here. And I managed to harvest it. It's very old. It's no longer in use. But this is the nest of a white-bellied sunbird, which is a really awesome small little bird with a long bill that is often drinking from flowers and nectar. But if you zoom in there real close, you can see it's got a beautiful little pouch there. And normally there'd be a lot of overhanging vegetation. Normally there'd be plenty of leaves and things going over like that, creating a shelter, and the bird can sit in there with lots of things inside there like fluff, feathers, leaves, grasses to keep the eggs nice and insulated. Now I'm going to turn this around, BK, to show you how well camouflaged this nest is. Can you see that? It's covered in lichen, it's covered in moss, it had grasses, it uses animal fur, spider webs, it uses basically anything it can find to stick camouflage all over this pouch. So when it was fresh, it would have had lots of colors on it, greens and browns and grays, and it would have nestled perfectly in the undergrowth. What an amazingly intricate little nest. Remember, it's not like the weaver birds that weave a basket. These birds literally just put grasses there and then use web from spiders to bind it all together. Now that is something I think is quite fantastic. And it would normally be sitting, let me just turn it around once again. In fact, this is mostly spider web when I look at it. There's not much grass or leaves here at all. What an awesome little thing. And it's very hard now because it's been a whole season, with not being used. There's been rainfall on it, there's been dust, there's been sun and everything, so it's very hard now, but what a crazy intricate little nest. I'm actually going to take it back to the camp to show the students, because I've heard that our backup Calvin has never even seen one of these nests before, and he's been in the bush for a couple of years, so I'm sure our students who've only just been in the bush a couple of months will really much appreciate this. I hope you've enjoyed it, but in the meantime, we'll send you back to Tessa with her lions.
Welcome back to Djuma Private Game Reserve. So you can see it's the first time I've actually seen the whole of Darkmane's head. It's up and I can actually see the full size of him now. Well, I haven't even seen him standing, but he is massive. That mane is unbelievable. I can't say I've seen many lions in my life that have a mane as gorgeous as his. Very aptly named Darkmane. He's a lot more alert than he was 2 minutes ago. And actually, I've just heard on the radio that one of the game viewers with some guests bumped into a male lion who is moving, and it sounds like he might be coming here. So I don't think the Darkmane or the other lions are aware of him yet, because the direction he's coming from is downwind of us. But I'm fairly sure he knows exactly where he's going because he can smell this. And he can possibly even hear the lionesses when they get grumpy with each other. So it'll be very interesting to see which male lion it is and what the interactions are. That lioness has decided to try and take meat straight off of the bone on the neck. So while I sit here and see what happens as that other lion approaches slowly, hopefully he makes his way here, I'm going to send you over to Nick, who has found a bird of prey in a tree.
So we've managed to find our very own animal busy feeding, and have a look at this large brown eagle. It looks like a tawny eagle. And it's tricky to see exactly what it's feeding on, but you can see the red meat. There looks like there's a tail or a leg there. So I wonder if it's not a scrub hare or something of the likes. There we go. What is that? It's a long leg. It looks maybe like... Let's see if I can have a look at my binoculars. If anyone has any ideas on what they think it might be, please send through a comment. Give us a hand on identifying the carcass that the tawny eagle is feeding on. From this angle, it looks like it might be the leg of a bird. And I wonder if this tawny eagle managed to catch it itself, or if it stole it from another bird of prey that had caught it. But quite cool to watch a raptor as big as this feeding. So, question, if I could be a bird for a day, what type of bird would I be? Now, I was mentioning how much I like owls earlier, but I reckon if I could be a bird for a day, I'd want to be, I know it probably sounds a little bit disgusting, but I would like to be a species of vulture, just because of the heights that they soar to and the view of the area that they get when they're high up in the sky. They've also got an incredibly good sense of vision. So I'd like to test it out and see just how much better their vision is compared to ours. But if I could be a bird for a day, I'd take any bird. I'd just love to get the opportunity to be able to fly above the ground and get that aerial view of what's going on below. See how this eagle's picking away at this carcass and pulling off little pieces of meat with its beak or bill and then swallowing it. Obviously it can't chew, so it has to tear small pieces of the carcass off and then just swallow that one by one. And you can see it's found a really nice tree to be doing that in. Nice steady branch to sit in, no leaves blocking its view of the carcass. A guinea fowl, that's a pretty good guess. A guinea fowl is quite a big bird though, but it could be a guinea fowl. I mean, by the size of the legs and the feet, potentially a guinea fowl. I was thinking more along the lines of a spur fowl or francolin. But very good guesses from everyone at home. So Liam asking about tawny eagles' favorite types of food. I think they enjoy pretty much anything that they can catch. From what I've seen them feeding on obviously carcasses, because they do tend to scavenge quite a lot, as I said earlier. Small mammals, scrub hares, small rodents. I've read up that they can even catch small antelopes, but I've never been lucky enough to see that. Maybe something like a really young impala or a younger steenbok or common duiker. I'd guess them to be able to catch reptiles, maybe some snakes, monitor lizards. And then I've also seen them feeding on the winged termites or the alates. That tends to be a favorite food source in the summertime of many of the raptors that we get here. When those alates start rising from the termite mounds in their hundreds and thousands, often you'll get these raptors on the ground. Lesser spotted eagles, another one I've seen feeding on termite mounds, even African fish eagles. Yeah, I think I would also go more towards a spur fowl. I mean, there was no real clear indication of what it might be other than that leg and foot structure of the bird. But I mean, you can see that there's not much left of the carcass. But just based on the foot size, I was also going to think more along the lines of a spur fowl. But very good guesses from everyone. So we'll leave this tawny eagle to continue feeding and continue along the Timbavati River and see what else we can pick up this afternoon.
The Masai Mara in Kenya is an iconic wilderness filled with life. Its inspirational beauty has captivated our hearts on WildEarth for many years. While this season of the world's greatest migration has been missed, WildEarth is preparing a spectacular comeback in 2022. For the first time ever, WildEarth will be running expeditions to Kenya's Masai Mara throughout the 2022 migration season. Hosted by David Githu and Isaac Rotich, you could be a part of the team that shares the wildebeest migration with the world, live on WildEarth's daily safaris. If you're interested, then head over to our website to find out more.
It's day one of the annual South African Guide of the Year competition, and our first foot into this competition this morning is all about tracks and signs.
We're going to call you in one at a time. Just look at it, the information will be there.
Our 5 guides have been tasked by the judges at figuring out who is what is who, and where they go in the bush.
Either Franklin or guinea fowl, but because of the volume of other deposits in the area, we went with guinea fowl.
Detailing the surrounding that you need to look out for tracks. The details is very important.
I've seen something I've never seen here before. Look at these cubs. One is crossing the river. It's being washed away, unfortunately, but I'm sure the mother is going to save her. Look at that. How beautiful. Look at that. One crossing, 2 to go.
Well, we left Marips, and in the meantime, Taylor was doing some work, and she managed to find a leopard for us. So those of you that know Taylor, she's busy guiding guests out of Tembeta, and she managed to find the little princess, Tlalamba. She's got a Steenbok kill in the Mulawati. So again, signal was sketchy, but at least it was quite close to where we were with Marips, so we've just come in to come and have a look and see what she's up to. She's got a small Steenbok. I don't know if it'll be much here tomorrow. Looks like she's killed it during the day, and she's just lounging about at the moment. If you look on the bottom branch there, you'll just see the kill hanging over the tree itself. You can see she's kind of plucked this hair off of it, but actually hasn't fed too much on it at this stage. I'd expect there's not going to be much left of that well, she should still be here in the morning, but I don't think she'll be here by tomorrow afternoon this time. That's also if, one of the boys doesn't come along, so if Shasha or Mulawati or the likes arrives here, they'll steal that from her. But it's a good opportunity for us with her to have a kill, to check what's actually happening with Kalambe. Has she given birth? Has she still got cubs inside? What's kind of happening? I'm intrigued because when I drove to get here, I found her tracks. It's the one road we didn't drive this morning. Well, actually, we didn't drive a lot of these roads here. But these tracks here are going up and down, up and down, up and down. Now, normally when leopards make a kill, they travel one direction, kill, then drag the kill up into a tree, and then they go for water. Now, water is not in the direction that those tracks are going up and down. So I'm intrigued to see what she does on this kill. If she already has cubs and she feels like she's confident enough, she might march us from here to the cubs, or cub, or she's hasn't had them yet and still very heavily pregnant, or she might not be confident enough to take us there, in which case she'll just stay at the kill and she'll wait for us to leave before she goes back to the den. So there's a number of options that can happen, but we'll only really know when she stands up as to what's actually going on. The way she's lying now, it's near impossible to tell whether there's still cubs inside there, or she's given birth and potentially lost them already, or still has them. I mean, all those options are still on the table. So it'll just take a bit of time for us to be able to figure out what's happening. But there's a great opportunity for us to actually see the course of the next kind of day, and to figure out exactly kind of where and what and how, and kind of what the story is with her. Now, just to give you an idea, where she is right now, she's in the Mulawati south of Mamba. Where Steve saw her with those cubs for the first time a few months ago is from this tree, I would say 300 meters, maybe. Yeah, 200 yards, 300 meters, somewhere there. Kind of behind her. So as the crow flies, I mean, for a leopard to walk there would be less than 5 minutes to get into that drainage line. So it's possible. And then just up from here, if you cross the road, there is a little hole in the ground, and we saw Tandi once go in there when she was looking for a den at one point. So there's options here, and then from there, the next kind of phase to go is up towards the den site where she was first seen, which we looked at yesterday afternoon. We checked there and found that her tracks had come past there. But so it's possible that she's still scouting for a den. But we'll just check. Like I said, there's lots of options on the table when it comes to Kalamba. I need to see her properly standing up, otherwise we're not going to have much of an understanding of what's going on. It's a nice tree for her, and amazing the camouflage. When you see it like that, very difficult to pick her out of that. Hillary, it's the way to tell that the leopard has had cubs and the cubs are still alive. When if a leopard, let's say, had to give birth and she kind of moves around and the cubs get killed, let's say, and she'll still have milk pouches that will be full for a few days after that. So milk pouches cannot always be perfectly kind of reliable, whereas suckle marks, if you see fresh suckle marks, you know that she's actively nursing those cubs. So they're the most definitive way of telling. Behaviorally, you can also pick it up when you start to see a female moving in the same area, and she might not always take the same route, but she'll go back to the same centralized point. Then you know she's going back for a reason, and if that's a number of days, then yeah, she's kind of got something there. And whether that be a kill or cubs would remain to be seen when you follow those tracks. But when you start to see a leopard going to the same point and leaving for a number of days, it's generally cubs. But the definitive kind of absolutely that's cubs is when you see suckle marks. Before that, it's completely a guess. Yeah, I'm laughing at Taylor because Taylor's busy filming me. We should actually put Taylor on camera at some point. We'll put her on camera one day soon. She's around for the next 3 nights, so we'll catch her at some point. I'm sure a lot of you would love to see Taylor. so we'll get her eventually. But yeah, we can thank Taylor and Mike for this one. Yvonne, yes, the answer to that is a most resounding yes. And the reason why is because a leopard uses a tree for two things. One is to store food, and two is safety. And so when you're pregnant, you need to be as safe as possible. So climbing a tree is part and parcel of that. Obviously, it's not as easy going up and down when you have some extra weight in the stomach, but when you think that they are able to take twice their body weight in carcasses up trees, a little bit of extra weight around the middle, it's not that much of a problem for them. They're easily able to take up those little cubs that, don't weigh very much, or 3 little cubs, or even 4 in some instances, and still climb fairly easily. It's just a little bit uncomfortable, I would imagine, to lie on the branches like that. I'm surprised no hyenas, actually. There will be 100% hyenas here tonight at some point, because this is a thoroughfare for them. And they'll pick her up with her tracks going up and down as much as they have, and they most certainly will pick up her scent. But yeah, pregnant leopards climb just as well as normal unpregnant leopards. Shame, she looks like she's had a long day. But this, like I said, I think this steenbok was killed during the day today. I don't think this steenbok comes from, last night or yesterday. This is today's one. And I wonder if it wasn't her tracks we had at Treehouse. And then she came along the drainage line that leads from Treehouse straight east. Because we had her tracks kind of going south around the bottom edge of the dam, and then the buffalo stepped all over them. But she could have bent a little bit more to the east, and then followed that towards Elephant Carcass, and then Elephant Carcass pops out right where we are right now. So it's actually not that far for her to have walked to be able to get it. So yeah, I think it's very possible that those tracks were hers. But nice to see lots of our favorite leopards this afternoon. I think Marips and Kalamba are kind of the two most requested leopards that are pretty permanent here. I know a lot of you often ask about Tingana, and I mean, he's unfortunately an anomaly at the moment. We don't really know where he is or where he'll appear, so most of what we can do with him is just hope that he just makes an appearance. But the actual leopards that are pretty kind of territorial, if you want to call it that, with Marips. I mean, Marips himself is not territorial, but he's in his natal territory. They are two of the favorites, I think. It's pretty much most people's wishes to see Kalamba and Marips when they come here, and it's amazing, even with a lot of guests that I've driven of late, they are two of the favorites, and Thandi, of course. So hopefully Thandi will make an appearance at some point too. All right, well, we'll continue to sit with her. Let's see what she gets up to. Still sitting with Kalamba. She's not done very much. We'll see how it goes. We might reposition just now. Again, like I say, signal is a little tricky where we are. It seems to be good for now, but we'll have to just be careful about how much we move and where we move to. So yeah, we'll try and figure out, see if we can get a better gap. There should be a nicer gap from another angle, which will be kind of to my right, but there's another vehicle that's there at the moment, so we'll let them enjoy the sighting for now, and then we'll try and see if we can move when they leave. Yeah, it's always like that. One just needs to be kind to others and allow them the chance to see too. I think it's one of the things that the people actually don't understand when they come out on safari is that, there's a number of other people that have also traveled, and so it's always good just to try and share things. Some days you'll be lucky and you'll be the one that finds everything, and other days they'll find things, and if you're not willing to share with them and you're not going to tell them about things, then they're going to do the same to you, and that's only going to end up in everybody losing out rather than being kind to one another, and allowing each other to have time together with the animals. You might hear the other vehicle moving about in the background. And it's just them, like I said, trying to reposition and get themselves a good spot. So what I think we'll do is we'll sit here very patiently and wait and see what she gets up to, and then, like I say, eventually we'll maybe try and reposition ourselves to get a better view.
Welcome back to the Pride of Lions. I am as excited as a child at Christmas right now. Although you can't see it at the moment, we have got an addition to the party. If you look just through the back of the bushes, it's very tough to see, but there is a male lion there. And we don't know who he is. We haven't had a decent enough view to be able to tell which male lion it is. But he is less than 50 meters from where the Talamatis and dark mane are currently feeding on the buffalo. There you can see the movement through the back. So he's watching, and every now and then he's edging closer and closer. And I feel like you can cut the air with a butter knife right now. There's so much tension just from me, because I know he's there, even though the Talamatis don't. Look how he's edging closer. It's unbelievable. Lion lover, fantastic question. I think if this is maybe part of the coalition of the dark mane, so maybe it might be Mohawk or Blondie, then we might have a more subdued interaction. They might realize it's him, he might realize it's them. And there might be a little bit of a squabble over food, and then they might sort themselves out. If, however, this is a lion that they do not know, if it's not part of their coalition, then we might have quite a fight on our hands. Because he is so severely outnumbered, there are currently 10 lions around me. If he does come forward and he's not from the Pride, there's a decent chance that between these 10 they would be able to chase him off. But I think either way there's going to be some form of noisy interaction with a lot of tension. So that sub-adult male that you can see sitting up on the right here, he's the only one that's noticed movement. And he's been doubting himself. He saw the movement earlier and was fixated on it, and then decided, oh no, maybe it's nothing. So he came around to the carcass, then he spotted the movement again, has been staring, and there you can see he's kind of distracted himself a bit, but he's straight back to fixated on where the other lion is. And because that lion is downwind of the Pride, they can't smell him, but he can smell them. And so this movement that this young male's picking up will just look a bit like movement to him. He can't smell necessarily that it's another lion. So at the moment, he doesn't look too perturbed by it. He's turning around, turning his back to the movement, kind of distracting himself with a few other things, but every single time he does that, the other lion takes a chance to take a few steps forward, because now there's nobody watching him. And now where the sub-adult has just laid down, he's got a big tuft of grass in front of him. So he won't be able to pick up that movement. So I think that lion is making some very calculated decisions at the moment. He'll be able to pick up from the wind that's blowing from us to him. He'll be able to pick up how many Pride members there are here, how many males, how old they are, and whether or not he knows them. And so that's why he's taking his time approaching, because even if he is part of the coalition with dark mane, he still has to be careful how he approaches the situation. But from his behavior, I would think he might not actually be part of this pride or coalition. Or maybe they might be even in a bit of a bad spot, where they might have had a spat recently. Maybe he's just nervous because there is food here. And he knows that that pretty much always means a fight with lions. Yes, I'm also wondering if this could turn into a fight, or maybe it'll completely surprise us, because I think in my mind, I'm thinking he's going to come forward, he's going to get chased out. Maybe it'll completely surprise us, he's just being extra cautious and he comes in for a family reunion. So you never know, it's so tough to predict. My gut is telling me that there might be a bit of a fight that's coming. Especially because that lion hasn't sat down, he hasn't relaxed. He's constantly watching, standing and moving forwards. You can see he's actually sniffing the air at the moment, that movement of his head going up. He's really scanning the surroundings. What's very interesting is currently where he is compared to where the carcass is. There's a straight line of, I would say actually about 40 meters, if that. But Dark Mane is actually on the closest side to him of the carcass and has his back to him. So that might also be something that he's looking at to see what Dark Mane is doing, because that's the biggest threat. So you can see quite clearly these lions have no idea that there's another lion. He's now making a very bold move at the back. He's actually come out almost completely into the open. He is stalking them now. So let me know if you can spot him in the background. He is still very well camouflaged. So if you look at that branch on the right-hand side, just to the right is his mane sticking out. So he's actually come out into the open, and now they've seen him. You can see some of them don't know which way to look. The others are all staring. Lisa, I think definitely if Dark Mane wasn't here, he might have some more confidence. Of course, the presence of any male lion is enough to at least intimidate another male lion or any other lion. You can see him walking in the back. He's decided maybe this is not worth it. He's actually making quite a speedy walk in the opposite direction, and look at how the lions have reacted. The younger ones are actually moving away, the sub-adults, where all of the bigger lions are standing and staring in his direction. I think he's realized very quickly that this is not a situation he wants to step into. The lions are actually running away. That's ridiculous. What a turn of events. Majority of the pride is sprinting away behind Wendy. You can't even see half the sub-adults anymore, they're so far away. What a ridiculous turn of events. He's calling, listen. So at the moment, the pride has literally scattered. They are all very hastily moving away. Listen to him. He's getting closer, it's getting louder. That is a ridiculous turn of events. I could not have imagined that was going to be the outcome. One male on his own, matched up against the pride. Maybe it's part of the scare tactic, though. He's coming slowly towards the carcass now. And now he's speeding up. He's actually running. Oh, he's actually scent marking. Have a look at that. I actually wouldn't be surprised if the reason they reacted the way they did is because he's calling. They're thinking he's calling in backup. Still calling consistently. His belly is very full. He doesn't need the food. Some of them are starting to growl back. He looks like a lion where you do not want to get in his way. Right, it might be a bit tough to follow him. He's moving behind, but I'll move as soon as I can. Look how he's running after them. All right, we're going to try and follow as best as we can. Yes, I'm also very interested to see what's happening. Ironically, there is still one sub-adult that somehow managed to hide. Thank you so much. That is incredible. So definitely not a friend of Darkmane. Let's hope Wendy can keep up with him. All I can see right at the horizon is lions disappearing. That is unbelievable. Look how far they've gotten already. Can't even see them properly in the camera. That is insane. Still scent marking. Amazing. So he's actually standing his ground. He's probably got backup close by. Oh my goodness. So literally all you can see in the distance is mayhem of lions running away in the dust. Unbelievable. I think this might be my favorite lion sighting ever. Okay, we're gonna have to try and move around and keep up with him again. There is still one sub-adult that is way back at the carcass, so that one needs to try and find the rest of the pride at some point. Because if it gets stuck there and the rest of the backup comes in, might have a problem. Come on, Wendy, old girl. Right, they are coming onto a road. I know there are other game viewers in the area. They are disappearing so fast. Heading towards a ridge. I don't know if we'll be able to follow them, but you can see, oh my goodness, that is hilarious. He has just won the fight, so he's decided he's going to roll around And he's watching. Literally, all the other lions are way up over the horizon already. So if you see any flashes of gold in the background, that's the rest of the pride disappearing. It's as though they evaporated. Unbelievable. He was not having any of this. No nonsense kind of attitude. Right, so I don't know how well we'll be able to follow them. James, it certainly looks that way. That is ridiculous in terms of line dynamics. I'm a little bit in shock about what's just happened, but it certainly looks like there is about to be quite an overthrow. I think they are going to be incredibly tough to follow. I'm going to do what I can. Luckily, I do have a little bit of help from 2 other game viewers. I don't want to just go plowing straight through the trees. So I'd rather look for a nice open route. Poor on the back here is going to be bouncing around like crazy. Come on, Wendy. Okay, so while I have the best time of my life off-roading to find these lions again, let's hope I manage to catch up with them, and I'll catch up with you later.
As WildEarth has shown, a guide is critical to your enjoyment when on safari. Safari Guide of the Year is an annual event which creates awareness for these men and women who dedicate their lives to tourism and wildlife. WildEarth fully supports this initiative that gives more credit to a profession that drives our economy and flies South African flags higher than most. In the lead up to our live award ceremony, where the Safari Guide of the Year 2021 will be crowned, we are inviting all our viewers to join us for a special fireside chat. Open to everyone, this unique event invites some of the top guides in the country to Djuma on the 26th of September, straight after the Sunset Safari.
I think sometimes you need just to listen. So it's a kind of taking out all that other spirit and bring back wilderness and healthy. Bushwalk and trek and sign. I'm sure I'm good at that. I spend most of my time on the ground since I was a young boy, so I think I'm good with that. Actually, I'm not much nervous of any category. Just take it as it is. Yeah. I'm not 100% sure on what the judges are looking at. So chances are 50-50 on my side. I'm not... Obviously, when you go for a competition, you say you win.
You are cheeky. That was a brave decision. Amber Eyes is... Oh. Oh. That is so magic. That was absolutely wonderful. Amber Eyes just gave that cub an enormous hug.
Expect the unexpected here on WildEarth daily.
So if you have a look in front of us, you can see for the most part, there's just grass and a few russet bush willows around us. But tucked away in this longer grass are two lionesses. The two lionesses that we had this morning in the riverbed, just west of Ngala Tented Camp. And it appears this afternoon that they've left the 5 cubs back in the thickets, and they have started to move a little bit earlier this afternoon. They have now gone very flat, but it's unbelievable how camouflaged they are in this grass. And even when they pick their heads up, should they pick their heads up, you'll see just how camouflaged they are. Really only the prominent markings that you see in the grass is the black behind their ears. There are also some impalas not too far away from us, maybe 80 meters to our right. We don't have a good view of them at the moment because they are in the drainage line, but I think it'll be quite a good idea to just stick around and see if these lionesses don't pop their heads up, and maybe if they spot the impalas, they might actually try and stalk them. But imagine walking through and tracking lions in this part of the reserve and walking here. You would have no chance of spotting them. They'd definitely have to spot you and give you a warning, otherwise you'd walk right into them. Oh, there we go. And what that lion heard was a zebra vocalizing in the exact direction that it is looking. Now you can see how prominent the black markings behind the ears are in this environment where they're lying down. Ideally for these two lionesses, they'd like to try and catch something not too far away from where they are currently positioned, and ideally something bigger than an impala, because they've got to feed both of them as well as the 5 youngsters, which they would, if they were to catch something and successfully bring it down, they would almost immediately, they might feed for a little bit and then almost immediately head back towards the youngsters and fetch them. If the cubs were to hear the animal being killed by the lionesses, there's a good chance that they would jump up and run if the lionesses are not too far away. Just run in the direction of the noise. I actually watched it the other day where not this lioness, but the other lioness that's lying down managed to bring down a young giraffe all on her own. And she just stood over the giraffe, and within about 5-6 minutes, the 5 cubs came running through the bush and immediately started to feed. That was when the lioness in picture now had that big cut on her throat and she was very immobile. That's why it helps with lions synchronizing their breeding. You can imagine if only the lioness who got the cut throat had had cubs at the time, they would have had a difficult time. They wouldn't have had food for a while. I couldn't agree more. And this time of year is when these lionesses do have the best camouflage in the bush. I would say even more so than leopards. Just blend in so well with this dried grass. And look at that view, you can barely see them or see her. While we continue to watch this lioness, let's take a look at the upcoming Masai Mara expedition in 2022.
The Masai Mara in Kenya is an iconic wilderness filled with life. Its inspirational beauty has captivated our hearts on WildEarth for many years. While this season of the world's greatest migration has been missed, WildEarth is preparing a spectacular comeback in 2022. For the first time ever, WildEarth will be running expeditions to Kenya's Masai Mara throughout the 2022 migration season. Hosted by David Githu and Isaac Rotich, you could be a part of the team that shares the wildebeest migration with the world, live on WildEarth's daily safaris. If you're interested, then head over to our website to find out more.
Welcome back. So there is absolute mayhem happening here with the Talamatis and dark mane. Lions have literally scattered everywhere. Dark mane and one of the lionesses have crossed back south into Djuma. Some of the other lionesses are scattered and the male is roaring from somewhere in the block. So we're going to have a look now and see. There's a few walking up ahead of us on the road. See what's happening, but it seems like everybody just went in different directions as fast as they could. And now here we are trying to pick up the scraps of where the rest of the pride has gone. So this seems to be a majority of the lionesses and some of the sub-adults. Way over to our left is where dark mane ended up sprinting off to at a pace that no one could follow. And somewhere in between is our, looks like, new dominant male. I'm absolutely blown away at today's events. It is just unbelievable to think that a dynamic like this could end up happening. That was not at all what I anticipated. I don't know if you agree, but I don't think that even occurred as an option to me, which is quite crazy. It looks like the sub-adult male, this is actually the same male that initially saw the lion, is much more relaxed than the rest of the pride. They seem to be sticking together like glue. Although they can definitely hear something because they are still looking off to the left. Perhaps that male chased dark mane further south. And so that's what they're looking at or hearing. I feel like my adrenaline is pumping, my heart is racing. Just unbelievable. They still got blood on their faces from the carcass. Unreal. So with how fast dark mane made his exit, I don't know how long it'll be before he finds the Talamatis again. Possibly a while. He might have already crossed out the southern side of Djuma at the rate he was going. I'm still not 100% sure which of the sub-adults was still at the carcass. Guy, I'm not 100% sure how many younger cubs there are. There are, I think, some smaller cubs in this pride. With these sub-adults, though, I counted at least 6 sub-adult lions with this group. Sub-adult meaning up to about 2.5 years old. But smaller than that, I certainly haven't met them. So I wouldn't know where they would even be. At the moment, there's quite interesting dynamics going on with the Talamati pride because they are breaking up. Craig, I absolutely agree. This is a phenomenal sighting. I cannot believe the events of today. From very sleepy lions earlier to absolute mayhem this evening as it got cooler, and watching that male stalk closer and closer was not something I've seen very often. I think today is by far my favorite lion sighting. I've seen many things with lion prides, but I've never seen an outcome like that. With so many lions, where you would think it would be an obvious win of 10-1, you would think that it would go a completely different way to what it did today. I can hear roaring in the distance. Alright, so it looks like the rest of the pride are starting to move around again, not quite sure where to go. I'm going to stick with them for as long as I can, but I'm going to send you back to Tristan with his leopardess in a tree.
We are with the leopardess in a tree. She was beautifully posing for us for ages and has now shoved her head behind the branch, and we have a very bad view of her. But yeah, that's the way it goes. The lions are interesting, but it's not the first time S8 has chased the Telemates. He's chased them before. It's the first time Darkmane's been with them when he's gotten them to them. And it's also not the first time he's been on Buffalo's Hook. He's been there multiple times. So, as much as it seems like it's a huge hostile takeover, it's been brewing for months, and it's slowly but surely been pushing further and further south. And he's already been seen mating with 3 of the Telemati lionesses. So it's not surprising that he's there. I'm pretty sure the pressure on Darkmane will just increase more and more and more, and it's going to be up to him to either stand his ground and fight, or he's going to have to then eventually leave. And it'll be interesting if he does leave. Does he go and join up with the other 2 at the Djuma Pride, or do they push him off? Lots to think about. But like I say, it's not the first time that this has happened. It's the first time we've seen it on WildEarth, but it's not the first time it's happened. The guys in Buffalo's Hook have seen him chasing the Telemates around before. And I think it would be very naive of us to think that Darkmane and him haven't bumped into each other, given how they've been overlapping quite a lot. S8 has been a lot around Big Dam, Kaiamanzi, southern side of Manyeleti, so who's to say they haven't bumped into one another before. Unfortunately, like I say, we had a really nice view of Tlalamba, but lions decided to have a little domestic, and that means that we now don't have a very nice view of her. We saw her stand up, no suckle marks that I can see. I looked with binos, I even recorded it a bit just to see, so I'll go back and have a little look. But no suckle marks that I can see. Their stomach looks as though it's still quite big, so I don't think she's given birth yet. Maybe she's still scouting for a den site, which is not bad news. So we'll just see. I'll see what she does. So I wonder if she's going to move from there. The kill is still below her. She came across onto a different branch, and then she's kind of walked back up onto this one. So the view will be better from the other side again. So we'll probably reposition shortly. It's also getting very, very dark. Now there's a heavy cloud bank on the eastern side that is slowly rolling in, and the wind has dropped. And when you see a heavy cloud like that, very little wind, it's often an indicator that about to get rain. So at some point in the night, I wouldn't be surprised we get a few drops of rain. I don't think it'll be storm weather, but it might be that kind of frontal rain that we sometimes get in the cooler months here in this area. So we'll just wait to see what happens. So peaceful though this evening. some guests that are stopped nearby at a dam. We're not far from twin dams, and they are being actually very loud now that I actually sit and listen to them. I don't know if you guys are picking it up at home, but it's ruining my silence. Anyway, little Kalamba seems to not be too phased about it. I'll probably reposition now again, try and get us a slightly better view. We'll see whether or not she's going to come down and feed at some point.
As you can see, not much has changed here. We're still basically just watching grass. Every now and then one of the lionesses pick their heads up and has a bit of a look around. But I think they're just being patient this afternoon and waiting for a really good clue before setting off in any direction. If they were to just move through the grass at a pace, there's a good chance they'll surprise animals that they are trying to catch this afternoon and thus spoil their hunt. So often with lions, you'll see them, they'll get up and move to a new area, position themselves. Where they're positioned here, there's a little bit of a view into some of the clearings on the other side of the drainage line. But I think more so than observing, they're just listening for any clues. See, it's still quite thick here through the drainage line, but with their eyesight, they'll be able to see through some of the gaps. And they're a little bit further east from us. So a question from Lion about lions, asking if the cubs would wander about. Look, you can't give a concrete answer, but 99% of the time, if the mothers leave the cubs in a certain place, they stay in that position until the lionesses come back and fetch them and move them again. If they are to move from there, they become a little bit more vulnerable, because most of the time when the lionesses will leave them somewhere, there'll be nice thick bush for them to hide in. But as well, if something like a leopard or another lion or hyenas move through the area, if they aren't able to hide well enough, they've got to try and get out of there to keep themselves safe. Because animals like leopards and hyenas would try and kill lion cubs, basically to eliminate future competition. But most of the time, the cubs will be fine where the mothers have left them, and they'll wait patiently. I mean, we saw it with the white lioness and her sister. They were left for close to between 7 and 9 days in one position, when they were still very small. Haven't seen these lionesses leave their cubs that they currently have for that long a period of time. It's usually about one night that they sometimes will leave them, and then if at all, maybe the next full day. So while we stick around with these lions, if they don't start moving about in the next sort of 15-20 minutes, we might leave them, because this area is quite thick and there's lots of rocks. So it'll be tricky to get out of here in the dark. But for now, we're going to send you back to Tess, who is still with her lions.
After an adrenaline-filled afternoon with these lions, we are finally settling on the road. Still looking quite nervous. You can see not a single lion has its head down at the moment. They're all looking in different directions. The lions are scattered everywhere. And all we can hear in the distance every now and then is faint roaring. And so I'm pretty sure they have no idea where to go and what to do right now. We have switched over to infrared. That's why you can see the colors a bit different. It is getting dark very quickly here. You can see they are feeling unsettled. It's not like lions to be moving with such full bellies unless they absolutely have to. So all those questions I got asked earlier about how long I think they'll be at the carcass, I think I'll scratch those answers. The answer was about 5 minutes. And then they scattered like the wind. So this has definitely been a very unusual turn of events. They are not comfortable. They're not feeling very secure right now. So it looks like a turnover in dominance is definitely coming, if it hasn't already solidified itself today. Which is going to make for a very interesting situation with the Talamati pride in this territory. It's amazing, lions are not relaxed when every single one is so alert. Not a single one is looking like it might fall asleep or settle for long. And I'm still scanning around. I can't see any other lions, but the direction that majority were looking in was actually back towards the carcass where that other little lioness is still sitting. So I'm sure they're wondering where the rest of the pride is, but more importantly, they probably will have noticed that that one in particular is not there. Just going to listen for a little bit just to see if we can pick up on that roaring in the distance. It's definitely a display of dominance from the new male, asserting himself here. I think they might be able to hear it and we can't. Fiona, I actually think it's quite unlikely that they'll go back at this point because there wasn't a lot of meat left as is. And then you combine it with being chased the way that they were and scattering the way that they did. I don't feel like they would go back unless they were possibly looking for that other lioness, although she would be able to find them off of scent and off of contact calling. So I think for now, they're just trying to find a space where they can see quite far, they can hear clearly, so that they've got the best chance of knowing if the other lions are actually around. Definitely a case of safety in numbers at the moment, although, that being said, 10 to 1 earlier, you would never have said so. Debbie, it is common for dominant males to leave a pride, and that is purely because it's the way that lions are structured. It's the way that they go. There is probably a new set of dominant males in a pride every 2 to 3 years. So they won't leave on their own by choice. But an incident like today, I guess you could argue it's by choice that he ran away, but it was either that or he was going to have to fight. And the better option of the two is avoiding the conflict, because you don't want to get injured to the point where you're obviously not going to make it or you're going to be hindered. I can hear some growling. But yeah, it's very normal for dominant males to be moved out of the pride. And to be moved out of their territories as well, because as younger and stronger males come in, they're going to get kicked out. It's very rare that it happens that a male will stay with a pride no matter what's happened. So this really might be the turning point that we've been preempting for a while. It was a beautiful lion that came in. Thank you so much for helping identify him. I can't believe that this is my first time seeing lions in 7 months and this is what happens. Maybe I should come here more often. Myself and Mpo. I think we have been so spoiled today with just events happening. I can still hear some faint growling from somewhere. I don't know if you can hear Wendy's fan or not, but It is quite loud, so I can't quite pinpoint where the growling is coming from. Good old Wendy served me well today. They look like they're starting to relax quite a bit. I take that back, hang on. Stand by. She is looking quite alert. She looks like she's kind of almost made up her mind of where she wants to go. But the others aren't quite so sure yet if they want to follow her. So I'm definitely going to try and stick with them for a little bit longer. It is going to get a lot darker very quickly. But hopefully we'll be able to give you an update just now.
RSA has a long history, over 90 years, of being involved and even pioneering aspects of the conservation sector in South Africa. Over that long history, we have realized that all of the issues that we are facing both locally and globally are due to human impact. Therefore, we need to concentrate on working with people, and that is what WESA does. What makes me passionate about the work that we do at WESA, and in particular the work that I engage in, is actually connecting with people. Currently the work that I'm working on is working with youth in a skills development program, and just to meet the youth and to hear their stories and to bring them opportunities that we hope will have some impact on their lives really, really fuels me to get up every morning. A huge shout out to the women that I work with, as well as to all the women that are contributing hugely within the environmental sector, both in South Africa and in the world.
And I turned to Shaw and I saw that she had this panicked look on her face. Either she was afraid that something had happened, or she was afraid that she was going to miss out on something. But instead of her missing out on those lions, we drove up next to them and I switched off the car so that she could hear what was going on. Now, these lions had killed a kudu, and she could hear these two cubs, both 8 months old at the time, busy pushing and shoving each other out the way to get to the best parts of the meat. And the mom was lying just to the side in the shade. Now, I'd known that before losing her sight, Sean probably knew what a lion looked like. But I really wanted her to know what this lion looked like. So for the first time in my guiding career, I started to describe to someone what a lion looked like. And I found that, I started to notice things in that lion that I'd never seen before.
Oh, it's going to be in trouble now. Oh, this is unbelievable stuff. Here comes a hippo in too. Go, Impala. There's a hippo coming in. I can't believe what we're seeing here. This is what we normally see in East Africa. It's all over. Hippo leaping at the crocodile now. Everything's gone underwater.
Expect the unexpected here on WildEarth Daily.
Well, we're still with Kalamba, and she's still having a good nap. She did stand up nicely for us and kind of show her tummy to us. There's definitely no suckle marks, and if they are, they like maybe day one. You can't actually see any discernible change in her fur structure. You can see her one teat is kind of sticking out, but there's no loss of fur around that teat. So, and her stomach still looks quite bulgy, so I think she's still pregnant. I don't think she's given birth yet at all. And we'll just, like I say, have to wait and see over the coming few weeks to see what happens and whether or not she gives birth. It'll be nice if she does in the next sort of week or two. It would be a good thing. It hopefully will coincide for us to be able to actually find them while they're still fairly new. But she's definitely moving around and looking, like I said, the tracks are all going to known den sites that she's been using before and where she was kept as a cub. That's always encouraging when you see a female's got like a bulging belly and that milk starting to kind of show. That's when you know that they're close and are looking. But she's been very, very, very chilled by her standards this afternoon. She's a cat that normally is very busy. It's nice just to actually hang out with her and chill and not worry about having to try to keep up with her, because she can be a nightmare. Jordan, depends on how much rain. If it's a big thunderstorm and heavy pelting rain, no, she'll come down. If it's just a light, soft drizzle, then she might just stay up there. All leopards are slightly different. Also depend on how many hyenas are around. So if 3 or 4 hyenas come in, that's going to keep her up the tree. You're not going to see her kind of coming down and frolicking around with them too much. So yeah, there's a couple of factors to that. But if it's just a soft, light drizzle, then no, she'll stay up. Her kill is up there. She's got a comfortable enough branch to sleep on, although she keeps moving herself every now and then, trying to just balance a little bit better. How they make these branches so comfortable, I don't know. I love the paw just kind of sticking out underneath the tummy there. That's not going to be comfortable later. Do you think they get dead legs? Like, you know, with us, like, when you lie on your leg too much?
I was about to ask you, do they get pins and needles?
Probably do get pins and needles. So. Be a bit of a hazard to get pins and needles when you're standing up in a tree. I mean, I've never seen one fall out, so I take it that they move it before it gets to that point. But, you know, it'd be a bit of an awkward thing if you were that leopard. They got pins and needles and it just fell over and out the tree. And we all have that one accident-prone friend. You know, I feel like there must be one leopard out there that's a bit of a delinquent that causes itself to fall out of trees more often than not.
I'm that friend.
You're that guy. I mean, Jonty did tell you were that guy, so it's very much...
That's what he meant.
Exactly. Ronnie, so on the tree, I mean, no. Well, I say no. The danger in having cubs in a tree, so sometimes what leopards will do is they'll find a tree with a hole in it, and that hole will go quite low to the ground. And they'll then kind of give birth in that hole, and then, the cubs, once they kind of develop a little bit, can start to move around, and generally it's quite big holes that they use if they do that. But in a tree that's very high, so like where she is now, no, because the risk is that the cubs, once they start moving around a little bit, fall out and kill themselves. So generally the denning at trees is either at the base of the tree where there's a nice tangled root system, or there's a small kind of hole that's close enough to the ground that they can kind of jump into it and crawl into it, but if the cubs somehow manage to get out, that they're not going to kill themselves. But here in this area, there's so many other den sites that they can use that it's an unnecessary risk. Also remember that holes in trees attract a number of other things like snakes to kind of utilize. So typically no, they don't. I've certainly never seen one in a tree as high as that. I've seen females with cubs in kind of holes low down on the tree, but never at the distance she is from the ground. Would be way too high for those cubs. Until they reach sort of 3 months when they're climbing, then they are absolutely fine, and she can leave them in a tree and walk off, and they'll be able to negotiate getting up and down pretty quickly. Patience, how far are we from this leopard? So from us to the base of the tree, maybe 15 meters. Yeah, probably about 15 meters. And then kind of if we had to take in the account of an angle going up, it'd probably be, I would say, what do you reckon, 20? Maybe Morgan, about 20 meters from her. So we're not excessively close. I've had much closer than this with leopards. I mean, I've had leopards kind of sniffing our legs and tires and those kinds of things. So get them a lot closer at times. All right, well, Tessa's still following the Talamatis. Hopefully they're not going to come this way. It'll be a travesty if they come here and steal Tlalama's kill, because I'd like to have her in the morning, but let's see where they're heading and what they're up to.
Welcome back to the chaos that is the Talamati Pride. Oh, we've all just stopped and heard something. I don't know if you can hear that, but there's a lion roaring in the distance. And now they might pick up their pace a little. So at the moment we are heading south back towards Djuma Private Game Reserve. It looks like the Talamatis are very keen to get out of the area. So the male that came in earlier is apparently the Mbali male. He has apparently mated with 2 of the lionesses from this pride previously in the not so long ago past. So this is not very good news for dark mane. And the Talamatis, these lionesses, will stick with whatever happens really, because they need to protect any cubs that they already have. You can actually hear some impalas alarm calling at the moment. So we're actually now on the cut line. I'm going to pull in for you and stop so we can see them walking in the road. They are definitely feeling nervous. So apparently dark mane and one of the lionesses crossed over this cut line very, very, very soon after the incident happened. Oh. So we're definitely a lot closer to the male now. Can hear him quite loudly. If you can hear that noise in the background, it's actually the impala's alarm calling. Ryan, they are definitely going to move quite far. They can move a good few kilometers to get away from any form of conflict like that. So it will definitely be a while before they can slow down. You can tell by the way they stop and listen every single time that male roars, and then all of a sudden move off again. They're very aware of where he is, so they can go in the opposite direction. It's not unheard of for lions to walk over 20 kilometers. And you can see they really are sticking together. Right. I'm hoping that we get some of that lion roaring when he starts up again. Look at the sway of that belly. They definitely ate enough buffalo. Unbelievable to think that that is what has just happened. They're almost cutting straight south towards Simbambili, southwest. It's also quite ridiculous to think that I know that there are that many lions around me, and I now cannot see a single one. Amazing. Good to know that humans are so well adapted. Alright, let's see what we can do here. Alright, they are definitely cutting away. Casey, there is definitely a possibility of that happening. Lions will take over any territory that they feel they need to, so there is absolutely nothing stopping them from coming onto Djuma. There's nothing stopping them from following these lions as is. And at the moment we are now on Djuma. Alright, so I am going to keep following after them and then switching off, just because when I'm driving behind them it does change the feeling a bit, because we can't hear that lion roaring in the background and it's going to hinder their ability to as well. What's incredible is how fast they are moving away. Alright, so I'm going to give them a little bit of space. I'm going to follow again. I think the male is coming up from somewhere behind us, so hopefully you might hear him roaring properly just now.
We're still with Kalamba. She's just stirred a little bit now, so hopefully she's going to come down and have a little feed, but we'll just let you listen to the sounds of the night while we sit here. Nice to hear the fiery necked nightjars calling. I'm sure I don't know if you can hear them, but they're giving it a good go, as well as there are little crickets, and there's also a hyena milling about too. It's just kind of bumbling in the area and behind the thickets. So we'll just be patient. Let's see. Hopefully she'll eventually come down and start eating on her carcass for all of us.
So we are just sitting for the time being. Daniel said he heard a lion calling from somewhere close by to where we are positioned now. So we've just come here to sit and quietly listen and see if we can't hear him or her roar again. So I think that's what we'll do for a little while, is just be patient and just see if maybe she or he does not give us another call. Thank you. That's actually a very cool question to answer, Leva. One that I've tried to see on a few occasions that I haven't yet connected with is a brown hyena. It's an animal that I'm still after, and I think I might have to. I've been to Madikwe once or twice, and we didn't get lucky there with them. We saw loads of other animals that I was really excited to see, but didn't catch it there. So maybe in one of my next leaves I might venture to the Pilansberg, where maybe I'll get lucky. Also really quite keen on trying to get out to the Kalahari Transfrontier Park, because that place just looks incredible. Another species that I haven't seen, which I might pick up there, I'm not entirely sure if you get them there, but I think you do, is a Cape fox. Those would be probably two of the animals which I would be most keen to see. Another animal that I haven't seen in South Africa yet or in the Kruger National Park, is a roan antelope. I've seen roan in Botswana and in other reserves in South Africa where they get restocked, but in the Kruger Park I'm yet to see a roan antelope. So that would be something that I would be quite keen to see. I think if I saw a roan on Ngala, I would become incredibly excited. So no luck with the lions or this lion roaring as of yet, but if you listen in the background you'll be able to hear the most common call that we're hearing is a fiery neck nightjar. That one. Then there's that other call, which is an African scops owl that's also busy vocalizing from the drainage line just behind us. Just having a bit of a scan around. But we have been sitting patiently for about 10 minutes now, so I think what we might do is we might slowly continue in the direction that we are facing and see if we can't pick up on any other nocturnal animals while we wait for this lion to potentially call again. The other night we had the most ridiculous honey badger sighting a few nights ago on this road not far from where we are, where they were digging out burrowing bees. But while we search for a nocturnal creature that might interest everyone, we're going to send you back to Tristan, who's got his female leopard still up in the tree.
Still up a tree and still taking it very easy. She's hardly moves, and you can see how well she actually blends in infrared. That spotted coat just makes her look as though she's part of the tree. If it wasn't for that tail hanging down, it'd be quite tricky to actually pick her up. But she's absolutely out cold. She's hardly moved this afternoon, bar turning around and repositioning every now and then. She's not really been too busy, which is fair enough. She's a busy cat normally, and she's got a meal, so it's good for her just to take it easy. But I think you'll find that she should still be here in the morning, bar anything weird happening like the lions coming through or another male leopard or a male leopard to come here. I think she should still be able to keep this and be able to still feed on it into the morning. I think by tomorrow afternoon it'll be done, but the morning she should still have some. It's not a very big kill, it's a little small steenbok, so it shouldn't take too long for her to get through it. But she'll have reduced capacity in her stomach at the moment with those cubs still pushing up on it. Bundibash, so currently, what do we define as the area? Do we talk about the surrounding parts of Djuma, or do we talk about just Djuma, Buffelshoek, Torchwood? But what we can have access to here in terms of the WildEarth Traverse, because WildEarth Traverse is different to Djuma Traverse. WildEarth has Chitwa and Simambili as well. So if we add those in, then theoretically you could have the following. Hosana, Tiani and cubs. Hosana is a very outside chance, but we'll just throw him in there because he has been seen on Simambili in the past few months. Just way out of the way, and by the time we get there, he's just gone. But it's possible. So Hosana, Tiani, and 2 cubs. So that's already 4. Tortoise Pan, Inzutini, Shadulu, Kara, Tavangumi, Inhlangula, that's 10. Then there's the male from the Timbavati, that Jiga Jiga male, that's 12. Monzo, Inkanyeni, Watika, Tlalamba, Tandi, Marips, Sibui and 1 cub, so that's 20. Kuchava and 1 cub, 22. Who am I missing? Did I say Mulawati? No. I think Mulawati, 23. Shasha, Tsemba, Mareeps. So yeah, we're looking at like 25, 26 leopards in this area. I did say clickfinger, yes. Those of you who have no idea who clickfinger is, it's Tavangumi. Moya, but Moya's, I believe she was seen yesterday in Malamala, so she's gone back south a little bit. Markham Sava could be an outside chance of seeing her. So yeah, a lot is the answer to this. If you think about that area that we're talking about, that is a very, very, very high density of leopards. Langa, I don't know where she is at the moment, but it's possible. Who else? Quarantine, very outside chance, but possible. Yeah, I think I've covered them all. We're looking at I was probably closer to almost 30 individuals in Sele. So there's a lot of leopards around here. We're very spoilt to have as many as we do.
Hi, we are Yaku and Milani. We are from Gauteng in South Africa. We started watching WildEarth last year during the level 5 lockdown, and we've been watching ever since.
Being in nature is one of the greatest feelings. We absolutely love it. Our favorite thing about WildEarth is that the concept is so amazing. We have the benefit of having a wildlife safari in the comfort of your home, especially when you're not allowed to go out. Being part of the Wildlife Explorer program gives us a sense of giving back and contributing to nature. It just makes us feel good because we love it so much. We are so excited to be visiting Angoma. It is obviously, I think for most people, an absolute dream to visit the Masai Mara. We can't wait to go.
Thank you very much for this amazing prize, WildEarth.
WildEarth Explorers. It's in your nature.
Here at the Advanced Rifle Handling Challenge, which is actually lots of challenges in one to gauge the contestants' skills at different distances and different speeds. This is probably the challenge that the contestants are the most nervous about. So let's get them locked and loaded. Are now doing the Hades halt, where they have to run back and forth to a target, turn, take aim, and shoot. And this simulates a chase in a real environment and gets the heart pumping and the blood pressure up. James gave us a demonstration, and the skill involved in this exercise is remarkable.
Goodness, look at its wobbly legs. Oh, I don't believe it. I can't believe we've actually seen it. Oh my goodness. Oh, careful, careful, careful. Oh no. Oh, it's okay, little one. Okay.
Expect the unexpected here on WildEarth daily.
Welcome back to Djuma Private Game Reserve. So I know it looks like I'm looking at nothing, but the Mbali male is just in front of us. He has been roaring, so I really want you to hear that. We're just waiting for him to move into the open again. He's moving incredibly fast. And we're kind of following him by his call in between his movements. There he is in front of us. You're gonna see him come out. There he is. You can see he's walking with his head down and moving fast. I'm hoping that I don't lose signal, but I am gonna try and keep up with him. So the Talamati Pride went so fast in the same direction that he's going, and he's trying to follow. And every now and then he's stopping to call. Let me go around so we can get the front of him. Alright, so we are going towards a little bit of a natural dip. So I'm hoping that there isn't a signal issue. If there is, please stay with me in case it comes back. He's going to pop out just on the left-hand side here. Let's see if we can find him. There he is. He has chosen a spot for me. Alright, as soon as he starts calling, I'm going to switch off. That'll be a good spot. There he comes. There we go, he's starting to call. Scent marking. Carrie. When he feels like he has asserted that dominance, so he might keep following until the morning, and he might give up when he gets to some form of boundary that he set up. It really has a moment of asserting that dominance and making sure that they know it. There's going to be a little bit of a dip. There we go.
Alright, so unfortunately we are just trying to sort out our light, which is not turning on. It's all happening at the moment. Unfortunately we had a bit of a signal issue with Tess. So are you winning there? You're going to just use your phone? Huh. Your phone is very bright. Thank you, Morgan. It's all going awry, I'm afraid. But it is that time to say goodbye to all of you. Hopefully you had a wonderful afternoon. It was a bit crazy here on Djuma this afternoon, one of those crazy days where we have a whole bunch of lions, lots of leopard activity and various other things. From us, it's been a pleasure, and we shall see you all tomorrow morning on our Sunday.